No hat. We're all wearing black shirts. Middle of summer, 86 degrees out there.
We know what we're about.
Yeah.
What we're about is Jurassic World movies, apparently. All right. So I guess this is the intro to the video then. I'm Jesse. This is my YouTube channel. You should know that. Go ahead and introduce yourselves again.
Friend of the pod, I guess.
Friend of the channel.
We're a
friend of the
podcast
channel.
now,
Yeah. Frequent collaborators in multiplayer games.
Yes.
Yeah. You'll hear these voices, now you see these faces. Or you might see my face, because I have my own channel, Bam the Fisherman, and you might hear my voice other places, but we're not going to disclose those, because voice is doxing, in my instance.
Yeah, nothing to plug on my end. So.
Nope, not plugging shit. You want to pay me for this voice in the Northwoods, you're going to have to fucking send me a check, and then I'll plug your products.
All right, so let's do the non-spoiler quick review.
Right,
Yeah, well, we're kind of unboxing
and
this.
a Hammer Collection unboxing at the same time.
You've already done your review of it, though.
Oh,
Chronotaurus is out of view. We gotta complete the ATST.
Oh, sure.
There he
I'll
goes.
review of that camera.
There we go. Yeah, okay, yeah. I don't know if he was in view of the main video, so maybe he should stay over here.
Doesn't matter.
All right. So yeah, non-spoiler review first. One of you want to start?
just general feelings, I guess.
Yeah, just not getting into plot details, but
Yeah.
how you feel about the film overall, what worked for you, what didn't.
I didn't care for the first hour, maybe, and then the second hour got a little bit better. I think I like it better than Dominion, but not
low
necessarily
bar.
Fallen. Yeah, 100% low bar. I can't say if I like it more in Fallen Kingdom, but yeah, it's how I generally feel.
Okay. So sixth best, perhaps. An asterisk.
Yes.
All right, Garrett, what do you think?
Without getting into spoilers, I actually put it not far behind The Lost World.
Okay.
And
Where do you put the Lost
And The Lost World is 2 for me.
Okay.
As chronologically as
That's
it
a high
is.
bar,
Yeah, I mean, there is some recency bias there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't deny that. And I'll need some more time to mull on it. But as the tagline or the colon implies, it's the rebirth. I like what they're trying to, soft reboot with it. And it was a very soft reboot. Very soft.
Yeah.
But I was okay with that. I liked how they approached it. I like where they can theoretically go for it. Let's see what the take is this weekend. They're currently projected to do 100 to 120 million is what my news feed told me today.
Like stateside take?
Yeah, I assume so. That was all the AP news feed said.
Yeah, I don't even know what domestic and worldwide numbers are good anymore since COVID.
Right. I just read the headline that said that, and that's what I know. That tentatively sounds decent, but it is also a very long weekend, so we'll see. But that's neither here nor there. Overall, though, right now it's sitting very middle of the road. We'll see where it settles with more time, but right now, yeah, pretty mid.
Yeah, for me, it's one of those films that I can evaluate differently as its own as a film versus as its place in the franchise. So I still have a lot of reservations about where this takes the franchise. As a film, it's kind of doesn't strike me as a particularly exceptional like action adventure film. It's not like actively terrible or anything. So it's definitely ahead of Dominion, right?
Yes.
But yeah, I don't know.
We're all in agreement there.
Yeah, that was easy.
Like there's a lot of dialogue moments that like do not hit for me. This was something the trailers I think were more egregious. I think like the first trailer was like more like the takes they used were different in at least a couple of cases.
Absolutely.
And they came off way more tongue-in-cheek Marvel dialogue than like the final cut did. But at the same time, those jokes are still in the final cut, and they really don't like hit for me for the most part. There was one quip from the paleontologist that I really liked. We'll get into that later. That was like the one that actually worked for me. I chuckled a few times, like ironically, at some of the dialogue quips. Of like, yeah, okay, sure. Yeah, a lot of the characters were, again, it was like the characters weren't like bad, but none of the characters struck me as particularly interesting or exceptional.
There are a couple characters that I thought were not great, but overall they're all very cookie cutter.
Yeah, pretty tropey.
Yeah.
Anything that like would set them apart and make them a little different is like so overt that it's, you know, too obvious almost. Right? Like some of the characters have a little bit of sadness, we'll just call it that, and like it's so on the nose and just spoon fed to you. Yeah, it's like here is why this character trait exists, and it's like you can tell immediately it's in service of the plot in some way.
Yeah.
And like it doesn't feel organic really.
None of the characters really have an arc.
Yeah.
I think that's a little bit disappointing. Mm-hmm. Maybe probably the worst character in the movie, but it's barely an arc. So
that is kind of funny to say that though.
It's very weird. Like
they set out to redeem one character very specifically, and they managed to slowly do it.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe this is a good point to transition into spoilers. I think we've given our general thoughts.
Yep.
I'll just say finally, my final bit will be that I can't exactly place like what numerically where this would fall in the franchise for me. Mm-hmm. Definitely ahead of Dominion. Definitely behind JP 1 and 2. So it falls into the morass of like Fallen Kingdom World JP 3, where it's kind of almost mood dependent on which one I prefer.
I haven't really ranked my order, I guess. So, but I think it's ahead of Dominion and JP 3, I would say.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Spoilers.
I'll go with that.
Yep.
Let's talk about the character stuff. So, which character are you specifically referring to as far as your character arc comments?
I don't even remember his name.
Okay.
Was it
the boyfriend? Xavier.
Yeah.
Yes.
The stoner lifeguard.
Yeah.
Boyfriend of the older daughter in the film.
I feel like I think he is probably the standout dud of the film because they make him so utterly unlikable like at the beginning that it's like I don't believe for a second that he's actually dating that girl.
Yeah.
Like
he's so obnoxious.
That was the big suspension of disbelief in this movie, was like that he and her
that he could pull
together.
That.
never mind.
Not like a comment on anybody's physicality. It's just they made the character so fucking such a dud, so like an unlikable bum that it's just like why?
Which that was his arc. Like he recognizes this, and over the course of the film, he learns to be a little bit more protective of the family.
He's a bum, and then when his girlfriend's in danger, he saves her, and then the girlfriend's dad is like, "Hey, you're not completely a bum," and then he's like, "I'm a bum," and then he's like, "No, don't call yourself a bum because that's bad," and that's the entire character arc. It resolves halfway through the film.
Yeah.
The only other like tiny character arcs would be Scarlett Johansson going from "I'm here for money" to "let's do the right thing" and fuck Big Pharma.
That was hardly an arc.
Which is exactly because like you could see she's right away set up to be indecisive on it anyway. So it's not even like is she, isn't she? It's like so trope that like of course she's gonna flip.
Which choice are you gonna go with?
And give up the money? Like it's obvious. Yeah. And then Mahershala Ali being like. There's like the throwaway conversation of like, did you ever get back with your wife after your child died? And then he's like, no. And then he, sacrifices himself for the family at the end, which also isn't really an arc. It's a thing that's set up and then, comes back and is paid off. Like, he doesn't even die.
Right. Well, no, I'm happy for that.
Yeah.
I didn't want him to die there because it seemed like. Especially because they were telegraphing a little bit with not showing the kill when they'd showed every other kill before that. Mm-hmm. Even if it was a surprise, like on the cliffside with the Kets, they you see everyone who dies die. Mm-hmm. This one did not shy away from that at all. There's no blood coming down the waterfall. There's no no Mr. Arnold.
Right.
No, I mean. Muldoon bought it pretty cleanly. Yeah. I mean, you're being fully embraced. Despite how, what was it, the novels, the comic books that walked that one back.
Oh, that brought Muldoon back? That's
Yeah.
the comics.
Yeah,
The
despite
rappers
that,
were playing with him.
yeah, which actually still would have been more honest to the book. But I guess getting into that, I do have comments because we watched this movie with Charlie of Charlie's Movies Review, and I do have his notes here.
Okay.
So I can.
Oh, he took notes. Excellent.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he put together his notes because he'll do his review in full form, and we can provide links to that eventually.
Yes. I'll link to his reviews of the rest of the franchise as well in the description.
Which he did all leading. Motherfucker did his homework.
Yeah.
I was very proud of him for doing that leading up into this.
Yeah, we had a short conversation in the theater while we were waiting for you. Of like he was afraid he was gonna get a tongue lashing from you for like being wrong about some of his takes or whatever.
No, there were a couple little
pretty
things
good.
that weren't like major.
Yeah.
No, actually, of all things, I might have to go a weeb on him about a different movie he reviewed that he completely missed the point of when he reviewed some anime flicks. That I gotta give him shit about. But no, he was like objectively and opinionated wise. Like everything he said was valid. Like there are a lot of critiques and criticisms I've had of the series. There is the one that I was going to give him a twist about. That's always cited is, I can't remember her name, but the babysitter in Jurassic World, and how everybody points out, oh, her death was so like bad, and like she gets flipped around by the pterosaurs and the Mosasaur. I'm like, yeah, because Eddie Carr deserved his fate.
Right.
Like this series has long since established that it doesn't give a shit what your moral standings are. You can bite it. It's not the greatest series about that, but it's not bad. It's like, okay, literally, I believe it's David Coep himself, the unlucky bastard in the San Diego scene in Jurassic in the Lost World. He's just a guy running down the street who tries to run doors of a Blockbuster, and the Rex turns on him and eats him. Did he deserve it? Fuck no. And it was pretty explicit. Like, it's dinosaurs and people.
This movie.
I don't agree on that. Because that's, going back into the grander scheme of this, one of the reasons I am finding myself liking this is they hit so many beats and bits from that Jurassic World 3 dropped the ball on for me.
Yeah.
Like where Jurassic World 3 is like, hey, we're going to pick up stuff from the novels and run it through here. This one followed through. We literally had Scarlett Johansson. We had Zora and the Pharmadick in the Dodgson role doing the hiding underneath the car with a predator surrounding him.
Right.
And I was fully expecting Johansson to like brace herself up on the thing. Because, yeah, I think Dodgson had eggs at that point. That's why the Rexes were tracking them down the movie.
I don't remember.
Or in the... I'm pretty sure that's it. I think he had something from the Rexes at that point, and that's why they tracked him to the car. And then there's the bit of Sarah Harding realizing that she has leverage enough to like push off against and get him out in the range of the Rexes. And I was actually hoping that exact thing would happen. Yeah. That the D-Rex would show up and she would shove him out in front of it. I'm actually a little pissed that he got so cleanly out and into the car and got it going.
Yeah.
I thought that hubris should have been punished a lot heavier.
Yeah. But
overall, that, and I was happy with a lot of the beats. I wanted a lot more out of the much pointed out and shown in trailers and built up riverboat scene with the Rex.
Yeah, unfortunately, the riverboat scene was like over marketed to the point where we saw the whole scene largely. Honestly, this movie's a good example of how surprised I get at how like 5 minutes of trailer footage can truly reveal every significant scene in a movie. Like, they're really like, you could piece it all together pretty well. And the pieces that weren't explicitly shown in the trailer, like you could fill in the gaps of like, of course the pharma guy is gonna turn bad at the end. And,
That's us being meta sensitive.
Arguably he's dead the whole time.
But I mean, it's a problem for me because like I think, I've watched 2 trailers and a couple extra clips. I probably haven't seen everything, right? Like no, like even if you haven't seen the full 5-minute scene play out, you've seen the 5 seconds of it that kind of tells you everything that happens there, right? Like I know the D-Rex shows up at the dock. It's also the context of watching the film because you've watched 75% of the way through the film and you remember that one scene from the trailer that hasn't happened yet and like, oh, okay, that's the finale.
Yeah.
That kind of shit.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, I know the T-Rex shows up. It's going to menace some people. Like, the farmer guy's got to get got at some point, so he's going to clearly be killed by that. And, like, yeah. But, I mean, it's not really supposed to be, like, a twisty-turny movie anyway.
Right.
But, like...
Especially for us.
Yeah.
We've read the novels. We've played the games. We are not the... Maybe we can get these guys in with a good trailer kind of crew. We're always going to see this.
Yeah, and it's definitely like a thing I do with pretty much every franchise movie of like, I've got too much of a finger on the pulse of the franchise to truly be surprised by it. Because I have to look at too much of it ahead of time. I have to report on too much of it ahead of time. I have to see rumors, so the rumors are swirling on the back of my head, and then they get confirmed by a trailer, and it's like, okay, so now I know too much about this.
Yeah.
Like, this kind of shit happens all the time.
That's where you hope that they'll subvert some things, not in that, but I think it's telling in how they approached it that speaking of what we have here, we have the Stego, we have the Carnotaurus behind us, although that, I'm so disappointed in Funko. Funko got my hopes up so high.
I knew it wasn't in. I saw confirmation online that the Carno and Diablo weren't in the film, so
That's...
I knew going in to not look for them. What on that note though, what I did know going in, this was what I mentioned to you, hinted at before we watched the film. I saw a comparison being made online to like Kong Skull Island in the sense of there being more things going on in the background, right?
Yeah.
And I was a little bit let down in that there wasn't nearly as much stuff going on in the background as that had kind of led me to believe. There was a couple shots of like an Ichthyostega or something like that, some amphibian fella.
Yeah.
And that was kind of the extent
Do we know
of
what that was?
I don't know for sure.
Because, I mean, it wasn't a Diplocalus, so it could have been the
No.
size of it. I was hoping Diplocalus because they're so unique.
It really just read big salamander, so it's got to
Yeah.
be like a Temnospondyle, like a Coolosuchus, or
Yeah.
a fucking Ichthyostega or something like that. Who knows? It like because though that body plan is too common in amphibia, and
Right. Something unique does not matter.
Yeah, drastically different lineages of amphibians still converge on salamander,
Yeah.
so it's really hard to say with 2 seconds of footage what it's supposed to be. Like, I wouldn't know that the little green pterosaur is in a Neurognathus if it wasn't for, a leaked document I looked at, confirming that's what the little froggy fellow is supposed to be.
Yeah, we only got a little look at. I'm glad we got something, but...
Yeah, there's a lot of shots of little things flapping around in the scenes, and it's like, is that a bird? Is it a pterosaur? Can't really tell.
Yeah.
So...
And then so many... I will say I almost kind of liked the cameos in a way of series familiars, with Dilo getting spooked off the scavenging carcass, not like I talk for a living, and the Pteranodon that was supposed to be a juvenile but looked like an adult in a cage.
Yeah, that was like...
That was weird.
That is the first time we've seen a Pteranodon with a long head crest since JP3.
And it was supposed to be a baby.
And it was like the Lost World colorization.
Yeah, and that was fucking bizarre.
What? Yeah, if that's actually like intended to be the Lost World morph of the Pteranodon, what a deep cut to bring back at this point in the franchise.
But why make it a little tiny baby that's very disproportionate for a young one in a cage? Like, that was like, it's fucking weird.
Yeah, that's I think the thing that's gonna, without getting too much into deep cuts yet, I think a lot of the cameo type stuff from animals is going to be the shit that like really gets lore pedants like me kind of scratching our heads of like what is actually where are these coming from? What's going on here?
Yeah.
So.
But yeah, so the notes from Charlie's movie review is that he liked it, thought it was fine, but kind of middle of the road. Things he did like, though, is Isabella and her Aquilops, is it? The
little ceratopsians, the Aquilops.
Right?
Aquilops?
I don't know how to pronounce it, so don't trust my pronunciation.
Okay, fair. The action was intense and enough to keep his attention. Special effects held up. Most of the stuff of the family was enjoyable, as they had more story and emotions, which ties in. Yeah. And he liked that the boyfriend knew he was a shitty person and hated himself, and that was at least an interesting character.
Sure. You
don't see in most Jurassic Parks, is that kind of self-awareness, which he's right about. What he didn't like is it definitely felt too long. They easily could have cut out some of the action set pieces. The mercenary group was just kind of whatever. The
Yeah.
Forrest backstory for Scarlet went nowhere. Her mom died and she missed the funeral, so what?
Yeah.
What's her character arc? Learning that free life-saving medicine is good. She didn't seem that against it to begin with, so he didn't think that it counts.
Exactly.
All the humor was terrible. Almost all of it fell forced, and he hated the pee joke. He ranks it.
Yeah.
He ranks it directly in the middle of all the rest of them
So,
right now.
I gotta pee. That bit or the whole scene?
I think the whole
section?
scene, as that's where we got the raptor cameo.
Yeah, I
And
want to
then-
talk about
They get
that.
jobbed out. Yeah.
And yeah, full job. I, going into it, was hoping it was going to be like the book, because there were so many beats here being like
It was a
the Lost World book.
Spinosaurus scene, I think, basically, except it was the raptors.
At least it was just a raptor. But
Yeah.
I was hoping for, like in the Lost World book, where the raptors actively avoid the territory of the Carnivores,
Yeah.
where this could have been the raptors don't fuck with Mutadon range.
Mhm.
I am actually, but tying into that, I hate that they were full on flying.
Same. Yeah. No, that was yes. I thought in the trailers, so there, you never see them fly. You see them flop around a little bit, and I thought it would have been really interesting to have the Mutadons not be capable of flight because they're too massive. Because they're a hybridized creature. There's no reason they should be aerodynamic enough to fly, and they don't look like they could fly.
No.
But they do just full on fly. They're a little awkward taking off, but like that's it. Like yeah, I was not a fan of that. I don't like the Mutadons.
Nope, fuck those things.
They got some good scenes.
Well, yeah, but
But,
that's
like-
all their good scenes could have been stood in for any small therapy.
Yeah, if they were literally just raptors, it would
Yeah.
be better scenes. And I think so this is a thing I've seen bounced around online, and I think it's probably may be true, and certainly is plausibly true, if not literally like confirmed at some point. Perhaps the Mutadons were not originally in the film, and they were just raptor scenes, and they decided they wanted to spice it up a little bit, and they switched them to Mutadons because they never fly in any scene that directly interacts with an actor. They only fly like in the background of the hunting scene, which could have been added later.
Yep. Because anything could have came in. Well, and that scene would have been the easiest reshoot ever to do. It's like, hey, Xavier, come back, stand there, and be
Right.
scared pissless.
Right. The only other scene that kind of ties into them being, aerial is like when they come through the roof of the gas station, which could
Right.
also easily be a reshoot.
Yep.
You cut out the scene where the raptor jumps through the window. You replace it with the scene where the Mutadon comes through the roof. Something like that.
The raptor still could have came down from the roof because
Right.
there was very slope ceilings going up to the
Yeah.
thing there. So,
Yeah.
everything there could have been easily not Mutadons. Because see, that's where I kind of got the hopes up of the respect to the toy and whatnot guys of not spoiling the Mutadon, but D-Rex's toys are everywhere.
Right. There's no Mutadon merchandise. It doesn't make any sense. Like,
No.
it doesn't show up till the second trailer. There's no tease of it in the first trailer.
Nope.
There's literally a shot of a raptor replacing a Mutadon in the tank in the first trailer.
Yep.
We've got the entire design of the raptor, like an entirely new, unique raptor design all over the merchandise that, as far as I could tell you, is not even in the film because you don't even see the raptors in the background clear enough to tell what their design is.
No.
They could be literally any raptor design from the entire franchise, and you couldn't really tell because they're in a murky jungle
Yeah.
and kind of semi out of focus and creeping up on the guy, and then you just get murked by the Mutadon. So like, I fully buy into that notion that they probably the script was originally written with raptors. They designed the raptors.
Something similar.
Yeah, and then at some point, possibly literally only as reshoots, they changed them to Mutadons. Certainly, I'm fully convinced that at the very least, Mutadons weren't in pre-production. That at the very least, pre-production was essentially done, and the Mutadons were added, like if anything, before they shot at the last moment. Because that's the only thing that explains why there is so much Raptor merchandise and no Mutadon merchandise, and so much marketing for the Raptors, because they're completely absent.
Which is a bummer in a way, because if they had held the Mutadons then out of the second trailer and everything subsequently, the reveal would have actually been a holy shit moment. In which case, I at least would have gave them the "you got me."
Yeah.
Like, because they showed the raptor claw under the table, recreating the kitchen scene from the first one. That's all well and good, and people are anticipating raptors. But if you would have bait and switched that into the Mutadons, at my meta knowledge would have applauded that.
Yeah.
Like you fucking pulled one over on me. I did not see that shit coming.
I did like the raptor scene we got until they got killed. Of course, I thought it was a fun scene of looking past the character pissing, unfortunately, and seeing the raptors stalking him and coming up on him very quietly. That was a nice animal hunting prey type scene. So I liked that. It would have been interesting to see the callback to. This is a case where I actually would like a callback because it's a behavioral callback of having the distraction raptor and the other ones covering the side type thing.
Yeah.
That could have been fun because we've never really had that come back after the first film. So
nope. And it was a little foreshadowed by Ali's character with Duncan. He called out the groups were split at that point, but he was talking about, I don't want to die in the jungle because there's always something stalking you.
Yes, true.
And I also, and I admit, I thought that was foreshadowing the salamanders fucking with him or something, or whatever they were, because you're seeing something kind of sneaking through the water.
The Dianoga or whatever the fuck. Nobody knows what that's supposed to be. Some people are like, is that a giant lamprey from Dominion? Is it a Titanoboa? I'm not even sure if it's supposed to be an amphibious creature, a fish, or a reptile.
I thought it was just the salamanders. Yeah. Just a different shot of them.
It seemed too long.
There's nothing descriptive of that. It could have been really anything long and slender.
Yeah, I read it mostly as big snake with an asterisk because it did look kind of like it might have been finned at one point. So
that's why I thought it was again the salamanders, because you're just getting little looks at it for brief moments.
Yeah, maybe it could be that.
Speaking of things going through the water. I don't like that they're like, this is the same Mosasaur from Jurassic World.
So okay, this is the thing that I got confused on in the film, and it never was really resolved for me. So they start out, they're tracking the Mosasaur. They say the Mosasaur, capital T, capital M. They got the InGen tracking data. Everything about the scene reads as it being the original Jurassic World Mosasaur. And then they get distracted to go find the other boat and rescue the people. Then they encounter a Mosasaur. It's not clear to me from the perspective of the film if that is the one and only Mosasaur or another Mosasaur. Because there is a point where they say that there's two signals.
Yeah, they were getting mixed up on that. And they're like, oh, it's like bouncing off the boat. I took that to just be the Spinosaurus fucking with shit.
Right. So is it the Spinosaur pack and the Mosasaur? Is it two Mosasaurs? Is it nothing? Because it's never clear. They mentioned the double radar signal, but at no point watching the movie is it clear what the radar signal actually is tracking at that moment. A Mosasaur shows up, so definitely a Mosasaur. The Spinosaurs show up, but there's 4 of those. So it's what was the second radar signal? I don't know. So it's very much a case of is it supposed to be the one and only Mosasaur, and they fully retconned its body and colorization and everything, or is it a different Mosasaur and the one from Jurassic World is also in those waters and they just don't encounter it? Because the Mosasaur was supposed to be closer to the island, 2 hours away.
The last time
by the time they dived back for the boat, but maybe it followed them, but they didn't know it followed them. It's a very confusing scene the way it's done, because they have tracking information. If the green Mosasaur is the Jurassic World Mosasaur, they should have known it was there before they even saw it.
True.
So it's very confusing.
I'm hoping that's what they were going for.
Yeah, I think at the very least you can headcanon that the Jurassic World Mosasaur is just also in those waters and was what they were originally going to go for, and then a different Mosasaur shows up and they're like, fuck it, good enough. At least they didn't do some sort of the dinosaurs are evolving type shit.
Yeah.
Which always bugs me. I'm okay with so an interesting perspective I've seen online, not tying to this movie, just talking about the franchise, is actually getting into the dinosaurs becoming more pure over generations of breeding, because you have different strains of dinosaurs with different, sections of viable DNA that's been filled in with frog DNA or whatever, right? And so over time, through multiple generations, you can potentially assemble a pure genome through sexual selection, which makes sense too, because the ones that would be best suited to survive would be the ones with the purest genome, right? Theoretically. Doesn't tie into any of this, but I thought it was an interesting idea.
But they did not go for it that we can tell.
Yeah, it does not come up. There's no explanation for the new, more accurate Mosasaur, unless it's just a full retcon of the design, which could be a thing.
I kind of hope they don't. And isn't one of the early stirrings about all of this, getting into beyond just the movie now, though, that this is supposed to be the launching point for a new trilogy?
So they've talked about doing more, but
Certainly the intention.
nothing in this sets up a trilogy that I saw, which I thought was an interesting point. It's a very
not
self-contained
necessary, but-
movie.
Yeah.
Right, like Jurassic Park 3. That was another thing. That's the reason why I put this one a notch above some of the others, is this felt more like what Jurassic Park 3 wanted to accomplish.
Yeah.
I feel like it pulled off JP3's beats better.
Yeah, there was a lot of JP3 in this. I was gonna say with Mahershala Ali's character at the end surviving, very Paul Kirby versus the Spinosaurus
Yeah,
of like
100%.
do the distraction. Everybody's like, oh no, he's dead, and he's like, I'm fine, I'm over here, like almost immediately.
But they did. I liked his better because they didn't show how he like, quick, look that way, and then he jumps off the or off the crane and dodges the Spino. Because I like also in a great comparison because the Spino. My objections with how JP3 handled him as this menace aside, which has always been a gripe for me why I don't like JP3 that much.
He got a scrape on his hip from an airplane, so he was mad the whole time.
I know, very, very angry. But they also established though that the Distortus Rex is super slow and plotting, and because it's a mutant, this thing ain't chasing anything down. Like a person on foot can get away with it if you have enough range.
Which is like, how has he survived? I don't know.
I mean, just by being that. As much as I didn't like him somehow managing to pull the Kong moment off and grabbing a helicopter out of the sky and like munching on it.
That was,
That I did not like. Of course they obscured that in fog because you couldn't fucking believe it if it happened in in action. Like that is of all the things I suspend my disbelief on these movies, like some moments like that are.
That was very strongly kaiju coded. It was very excessive.
But with that being said, and showcasing just how this thing is this isn't fast, this isn't stealthy, this is a juggernaut. I would see this thing being tough enough to take down Titanosaurs or just rip the shells off Ankies and stuff like that.
I suppose, it could prey specifically on the slow-moving things. Its like, large size.
It just no-sells defenses.
Yeah.
And so that way, I can believe this thing survived. But the other little things that was like the helicopter's really the only big one for me.
Yeah. I don't find the D-Rex's design believable either.
No, it's goofy as fuck.
It's completely over the top. It doesn't really make any sense anatomically. Like it's supposed to sell this like deformed creature, but it's perfectly symmetrical. It just has a fucking beluga head and extra arms, which is completely implausible. Like,
it has. They just wanted to make a Rancor. They said it in the design, in the lead up to this movie, they said they wanted a Rancor, and that's what they got.
Yeah.
And the thing is, as scary as a Rancor, I'll give them that. It was a good menacing creature. But it almost actually in that way became a little more believable, alternatively, that when they called it out, when Duncan just says, it's attracted to light, give me the flares. Like, he'd already keyed in on that. Like, he didn't have to have the Alan Grant moment of, like, hey, maybe I can get its attention away from the kids.
Yeah.
It was just like he sussed it out that it came when the village powered on. So that means that's its area that it just comes to at night and stuff like that.
Yeah, the flare thing in the franchise in general has been rapidly approaching the level of the hand thing in terms of pissing me off.
Yeah.
How remember the flare? You remember?
Yeah.
Like this one is at least they motivated it.
Yeah.
Like this is I still don't like that they had to do the flare again, but at least it was much better motivated to the point where I can accept it. Like it's not like Jurassic World where they fucking throw a flare in the Rex feeding thing to like attract it to the goat. Like what the fuck?
Well, that one actually starts making sense because that turns into a like people that I don't have any herpetological pets anymore, but ones that people that do will not only have tongs for feeding, so when they go to their enclosures where the reptiles are, if they have the right tongs, like sometimes they have colored tongs. They have ones that like these tongs have pink tips. So when I have these tongs, they know it's like this kind. It's this feeding. If they see me waving these around outside the tank, like my monitor lizard will get up and he's like, "Oh shit, yeah, food time."
Yeah, I mean, at least it's the same Rex in Jurassic World, so
Right.
it comes up, I think, a few times in like Camp Cretaceous or Chaos Theory, where they flare other large carnivores, and there's like no motivation for that being a thing that affects them in any way.
That makes less sense, and that's definitely a member berries thing.
Yeah. I expected there to be more member berries overall in the film than there were. Like a lot of the callbacks were handled pretty okay. I remember there being one early on that got to me, and I don't remember what it was anymore. There was one very particular one fairly early on, and I can't recall it.
Was it the Snicker bar? Because that one pissed me. Or not pissed
No,
me off, but
no.
bummed me out. How do you not... I don't mind the like the chaos theory moments of this is how this place goes south.
Yeah.
But why... I'm
Why
sorry.
don't you pick that up, man?
Okay. So let's explain, in case anybody is just going full hog on spoilers and hasn't actually seen the film. So the inciting incident in the film, which is like 17 years prior to the start of the film, which is 2027, so it's 2010.
Yeah, that don't line up either.
Okay, yes, we'll talk about that in a second as well.
Well, this is in a different area, so maybe.
But
yeah, it doesn't work.
Scientist is eating a Snicker bar. He's about to go into the quarantine area. He has to finish up his candy bar before he seals his mask, and he drops the wrapper on the floor because he's a fucking slob, I guess, like Vetri. And they get sucked into a vent and short circuits the entire security system.
Short circuits a door, but then the security system goes into reboot mode, and apparently nobody catches that and says, "Hey, hold on, we got to reboot the system before we get back into the normal swing of things.
Yeah.
Let's stop for a second." Like that was, I get it. They had to but you had carte blanche. You had no need or reason to establish why the Distortus is free and loose and why this research facility shut down.
Yeah.
And that's
then they do that.
The one comment we made is it should have been a Butterfinger bar, obviously.
Yeah, if they were gonna make this, if they were gonna have that happen, at least do that inconsequential little call out.
Yeah.
Unless Snickers must have paid him a lot of fucking money.
That is the sort of member berry I am okay with, because it is like taking a reference and turning it on its head in a way that is kind of fun
and sort of in character for the reference.
Yeah.
It wasn't shoehorned in there.
Yeah.
Like, because he only had to establish, like, this guy is lazy and he's gonna litter in a very, very, very fucking high-end, high fucking, like, triple-chambered fucking lockdown system.
Yeah, which the whole lab complex makes no sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so the D-Rex is kept in some sort of red-lit fog sci-fi space chamber.
Well, that was only after the lockdown.
After the lockdown, I know, but aesthetically, it is. He comes out of red lit fog.
Clearly meant to be some kind of sanitary zone or something.
Maybe a decontamination thing before you move somewhere else.
Exactly.
But it's unclear to me. Like, it wasn't like it was an organism kept in a stasis tank or some bullshit.
There were some throwaway lines in there that I was missing because I was like trying to take in so much of the InGen things happening. Like you said, in 2000. Wait, that wouldn't have been 2000.
It's 2010. It is 2010 in the timeline. 17 years before 2027, which is when this one is confirmed to take place.
Oh, see, I thought it was 2025 currently, and I was going to say 2008 would at least be...
For some reason, they put it 2 years in the future, which has no consequences or relevance to anything in the film, so I don't know why they did it.
That one I think I get because they wanted to establish enough time from Dominion to now of why dinosaurs have disappeared so quickly.
I guess, maybe they felt they needed 5 years to cook or whatever it was.
The timeline off.
I think Dominion was also a little slightly into the future at the time it came out.
That could have been too. Speaking towards a little bit of that.
Oh, but let me finish my thought on the D-Rex chamber. You see it later in the film. When they're going through the lab complex, you see the same door with the D-Rex label, and it looked to me, it's like a second, you only get to see it through like a second through the door. But it looks like it's just jungle directly behind the door. So is it a an airlock chamber with a decontamination that leads you out into the fucking jungle. So why are you in a contamination suit going through decon just to go outside? That doesn't make any sense. The guy's mask is open, he's eating a candy bar, so it's not like everybody in the lab is in a clean room environment. They're going into a clean room environment from a standard lab environment. So why is he decontaminating if it just leads outside? Very confused. Need to rewatch on like frame by frame to try and understand what the fuck the geometry of the lab is supposed to be.
Oh, yeah. For geometry, yes, but they were saying there was just like little technical jargon in there about the moving through and those background discussions that were happening. So they were trying to establish that, how much that's going to mean and what that's going to balance things out on, who fucking knows.
Yeah. It's speaking of the lab, it's a little silly to me that we see two animals in stasis tanks and they're both have two heads. Like,
yeah,
what the fuck? Like, okay. And then the Mutodon is in the tank and is actually alive, which is like
in the way back when, yeah.
Yeah. Well, like it's in a fluid tank, so what are they like feeding it by IV and keeping it alive? Like, why? I mean, they do a throwaway line about not wanting to exterminate the assets. Because if you don't kill them, then you can report to the board that they're just R&D. And if you kill them, you have to explain, the lost investment, which is bullshit. It makes no sense anyway, but whatever. But, like, keeping it in a tank, it doesn't alive, it just seems preposterous to me.
What do you guys think of this island kind of just being like the island of misfit toys?
I don't hate the idea of that, but I don't really buy the timeline. So this is 2010. So this is like R&D for the Indominus Rex. This is Jurassic World era. There's one line in the movie which makes it into the trailers where they say this was R&D for the original park. And so the only thing that makes any sense there is either A, it was used by InGen back in like the 80s for the original park and then was repurposed in World era and used again for bioresearch into the Indominus and other hybrids. Or when he's saying the original park, he's just referring to Jurassic World as the original, park that was actually open to the public, and not referring to Park as the original park. Either way, it's a little confusing from the perspective of the audience member trying to understand what's being discussed.
There is some validity to that now that I think about it, because one of my gripes going into all of this was, if we're calling it Rebirth, why is it not Jurassic Park Rebirth? Let's get it back to some more of the origins. And aside from establishing why the mutants in there being R&D for Indominus and the Indoscorpius and all that shit, that's fine. But then you get the pile up of, then why isn't it Maserati Corporation and not InGen?
Yeah, but they still call the corporation InGen in the World era.
Did they?
They do. Yeah.
Oh, I don't remember that.
It's I think in the World era marketing, they specifically refer to like InGen security and shit, which is weird. They refer to the security team as being InGen, and it's never really laid out very clear in specifically World about if InGen still exists or if it's been repurposed as like some security bullshit. And then I think in like Fallen Kingdom marketing material, it's made much more clear that InGen still exists as a subdivision of Masrani.
Right. Yeah. That makes sense.
So I mean, this is in line with that, in that there's InGen logos sprayed over everything, but that's acceptable.
So a little bit of a retcon still taking place, just not as glaring a one.
It's continuing a retcon that was probably made of Fallen Kingdom.
Okay.
Yeah. As to what degree InGen still exists as its own entity. Which one thing with this franchise, with the world era of this franchise, that's never been clear to me is. That's especially egregious now at this point with this film and this facility being abandoned and whatnot is...
We good?
Was Masrani comes off very earnest in the film, right?
Yeah.
In Jurassic World, Jurassic World telegraphs him as an okay guy. All his dialogue is like, I like the dinosaurs and blah, blah, blah. Don't worry about money, that kind of shit. Yeah. So he comes off as a good, if a little bit naive guy. And we never get context within World of how much of what Wu was up to Masrani knew about, right?
Yeah.
There's a little bit of hints that, shit was maybe being authorized by Masrani or people under him like Claire as far as hybrid development, and they weren't really reading the fine print. They were kind of just signing off on shit and letting the lab do their own thing. But this becomes much stranger when you have an entirely separate island facility
Yep.
that's being financed under the umbrella of Masrani Corporation. And it really, like, it only kind of works if Masrani was actually secretly an asshole in my mind. So I that's my take on,
I suppose
at this point.
I forget the arc and world, but maybe he's confronted with Wu and his sort of megalomania at the time.
I don't think he ever. So it's been a little while since I've seen World, but from what I remember, I don't think Masrani and Wu have any significant interaction after like the Indominus breakout happens.
Sure, okay.
Because I think they're trying to contain it. Masrani dies, and most of the discussion with Wu after the fact is like Claire talking to Wu.
Sure. Yeah.
I think Masrani's dead by then.
No,
I'm
pretty
I
sure
trust-
Masrani
I
and
know
Wu
they
had a big-
confronted each other
Yeah.
at least once.
Was he there?
Yeah, and that's where Wu like kind of shoots him down in terms of like
Like
that.
you
yeah,
want more
okay.
teeth, that type of thing.
Yeah, yeah. I think
Oh,
that's
you're
when
right.
the
You're
World
right.
War
You're right.
II
You're right.
started.
I remember it. Yeah. So yeah, okay. So a little more clear that like he just wasn't paying close enough attention to what was going on. But if that's true, then how the fuck do you explain this new island?
It still doesn't. Yeah,
It actually
fly.
makes this more jarring with canon. And you mentioned the Scorpius. I was going to say too, the Scorpius Rex from Camp Cretaceous. How does that, like, how does that combine with Rebirth? I mean, if anything, Rebirth arguably invalidates Camp Cretaceous because Camp Cretaceous describes the Scorpius Rex as like the first hybrid, a prototype that was developed in the lab and then put into storage because it wasn't good enough. Well, then why wasn't it on this island? Right? How does the timeline fucking work for that? Like,
Well, I think they're gonna. It's a kids' TV show. at the end of the
Exactly.
day. That one is a tale going back to the fucking 80s.
Yes,
Of doing
and-
like tie-in cartoons.
this gets into my the things I say about on stream and stuff when I'm playing GWE about this franchise is canon. You can't take marketing material to actually be set in stone, and Camp Cretaceous and Chaos Theory are only canon in as far as they don't conflict with the movies, which means the movies are not even going to consider shit that was said in either show or in marketing material for the other movies. And people need to wrap their head around this and come to terms with it because
I don't think there's any franchise that took the more lore media to as part of their larger
I think Star Wars
lore.
like poisoned people's minds on the idea that was more widespread than it is. Taking
And Disney sort of tried to sort of stick to that for a period, and then that just didn't work with anybody. So they're hopefully more freewheeling with that type of thing. More less chained by the lore nerds.
Maybe Star Trek also adheres to some extended universe shit. I have no idea, but like
Or
the vast majority of franchises do not.
More so than any other franchise I know of, but even then, they're still like, fuck the new shit.
Well, I wasn't even getting into that. I just meant more in like, classic Roddenberry era Trek when they had some spin-off novels or what the fuck ever. Like, did those actually have any consequence to anything? Probably not.
If they proposed a good, neat concept, usually you see more often like, hey, let's roll this into the main canon in our own way.
Which is
kind of Toriyama needing to have his own version of Broly.
right.
Yeah, I wish they did that, but
They did do that.
And Rebirth,
Oh, I mean,
That's what I mean.
I was sticking to the Dragon Ball reference.
they didn't start from a clean slate at all. They're just, I guess we're a world, but extra.
Yeah, the transition in theming from Dominion to this was incredibly jarring. To go from like living creatures integrating with the world to being like, haha, they're all dead now. LOL.
Except for in the equator.
Yeah, which like the excuse for that is like disease and not integrating with the environment because of different insects and
oxygen
things and the oxygen thing.
That
So
oh my gosh.
the oxygen explanation. So this
They
is
treat the equator like the Hollow Earth and the
yes.
and Godzilla movies.
Yeah.
So it is true that dinosaurs come from a time on Earth when there was higher oxygen levels, and they would probably struggle to survive in modern day. But this would be like them being asthmatic or being on top of a mountain their whole lives. It's not a thing that would like suddenly kill them 30 years later.
Right.
Also, the notion that there's higher oxygen levels at the equator strikes me as being patently nonsense.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
let's search that real quick. I mean, there's like shit people talk about having like, I have plants in my apartment so that there's more oxygen, and that's woo-woo. That's not true.
It's negligible. Yeah.
All right, do we trust the AI overview?
No.
Patently not.
No, you do not.
Do jungles have more oxygen?
Yeah, equatorial jungles have more oxygen.
Essentially, this means that the net effect of the Amazon rainforest and the amount of oxygen in the global atmosphere is virtually nothing, since photosynthesis of new plant matter is mostly balanced by microbes decomposing dead plant matter.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, that's even saying that like it's essentially the production of oxygen from forest balances other processes on the earth and keeps the oxygen level essentially stable. So yeah, there's oxygen levels are not generally higher in forest compared to other locations. Yeah. So my astrophysicist instincts that that's complete fucking nonsense are accurate and true.
Yeah.
So yeah, it basically contrivance to get dinosaurs to equatorial jungle climates and isolated islands again for some reason. Which just from a franchise standpoint, I don't know why you cut that down. If you want to get dinosaurs off the mainland, I think taking DX from the novels is a much better approach. Just be like, hey, there's a disease running rampant in the dinosaurs and they're dying off except for environments where the dinosaur populations are isolated. Mm-hmm. And those environments have survived because they're not in contact with the bulk population that has died off.
Yeah.
Done. It's a novel callback, which makes people happy. It's a T-posing Stegosaurus.
Thank you for acknowledging it. I did not anticipate that out of this.
He died for our sins on the cross.
They did go extinct.
But yeah, like a very contrived way to kill off the dinosaurs.
Yeah.
So we get some stuff at the beginning of the film that gets into that, right? There's two things that really bug me at the start of the film about the world building. So one, they bring back the idea that dinosaurs are boring again. Nobody cares.
Yeah.
Everybody gave the fuck up, and nobody wants to have anything to do with dinosaurs, which is very poorly motivated. It's just thrown out there like it's a true fact, and like, no, it's not. People fucking love panda bears and going to the zoo and seeing the same animals who've been in this planet the entire time our species is.
I guess when they're causing traffic jams, maybe people do.
Yeah.
Stop caring.
Well, that's what they could have done. They could have just said people are fed up with dinosaurs being a hindrance and getting in the way, so there's no support for saving them when they're dying off.
Yeah.
And people aren't going to see them in zoos because they become more of a burden and an annoyance than an interest. And that would work better. But no, they just say they bring back the Jurassic World thing that dinosaurs are boring now, which is bullshit.
But they don't want to say the other thing that would make actual sense, and that people aren't willing to pay the costs to see dinosaurs. Like, it's fucking $500 for a ticket to go to Jurassic World. Fuck that. Who has that money to throw? $500 per person. You take a whole fucking family. Yeah, it's $2,500.
Putting some real life like consequences into this.
But they can't do that because it's at the end of the day, it's fucking capitalism.
Well, there's also
so we can't shit on our own fan base.
There's also what looked like a billboard early on in the film that's
T-Rex Tuesdays.
Yeah, so I'm like, is that a dinosaur zoo that they're talking about? Like, so it just seems like any zoo had maybe some dinosaurs in it, and like, okay.
Yep.
So then they're just another animal. People love going to the fucking zoo. And they'll love it more if there's also fucking dinosaurs.
Yep.
It's so weird that T-Rex is like, really?
Oh, and then this was another thing I was going to bring up with the lab timeline, right? So the lab goes down in 2010. 2010 is when the lab fails. The Indominus Rex is 2015.
Yep.
The park opened in 2005. So it's 10 years that Jurassic World is open before the Indominus is introduced and the park collapses.
Yeah.
So the lab failed halfway through that timeline. When did the lab start? Like, the hybrid initiative is described in Jurassic World as being performed because people have lost interest in dinosaurs. The same topic we're talking about, right? Mm-hmm. And if you take this movie into account, that means they were trying to make an Indominus Rex for at a minimum 5 years before that, but even more because the lab collapses in 2010, but it had to be built and started sometime sooner. And there's a lot of infrastructure on that island. Yeah. So are we saying Jurassic World opens in 2005 and by like 2007 people are bored with dinosaurs? Fucking what? That's nonsense. And I think it's probably contradicted by dialogue in the film talking about revenue spikes every time a new thing is introduced, and like recently numbers have been going down. Jurassic World really gives the impression that the hybrid research thing is like maybe 2 years old, where numbers have started to dwindle, and so they push for this new thing.
Although
And in the context of this film, it makes no fucking sense, that timeline.
That one, I don't hold them as a tight to accounted for because we're going on Claire's information, which she wouldn't know much of that shit because we have established that Wu's been doing shit under the table for a while. And like you said, we only get the two discussion, or we get one real discussion between Masrani and Wu, and I don't feel like there's any time set for that. So I would be willing to believe that also that Wu, after escaping Jurassic Park in '93, never got off his shit and was always working on this stuff, just trying to find funding to do so.
Yeah. Maybe.
To which I say, give us the tiny fucking elephant.
They have
avoided giving us tiny rodent elephant for far too long. I still can't believe they never decided to do that one. But hey, we presumably have 2 more films to find out.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I guess you could say that like it wasn't so much that this lab existed for hybrid development specifically to lead to the Indominus Rex as an attraction, and that it existed for other random interest in developing hybrids, and then when it came time to do an Indominus Rex, they used the information from this facility to produce it or something.
The R&D. That's why they still had it going. Like they never. Wu has always been on this playing God fucking complex.
Yeah, but it's still like a 5-year timeline from like the collapse of that lab facility to the Indominus Rex. So like, I mean, maybe the facility was mothballed and collapsed and before there was ever a twinkle in anybody's eye for making an Indominus Rex, because it's not clear really why this exists in the film. Like,
I don't think that's the case. I think that Distortus now kind of confirms that they've always been mucking about with the DNA and seeing what monstrosities they could come up with.
Yeah, so that's probably the takeaway we're supposed to get from that, is not that the Indominus was like a new initiative, but that maybe it used the
science. That's also part of the GP3 Spinosaur's background.
Yeah, that was a retcon thing they introduced in probably Fallen Kingdom again, of being like, of the amalgam testing. It's all very nebulous. They don't like go into what the amalgam is, but it's implied to be the Spinosaurus, which is like the first hybrid in some sense. It's one of those things that's like talked about in the marketing material in very hushed tones and like hints at it, and then the fandom has run with it as an explanation for why the Spino is inaccurate.
Right. Okay.
It kind of works though, especially now that we have Distortus.
Yeah.
Like that Spino was like, oh, of course it was goofy because we had it combined with who knows what fuck all DNA. And here's Spinos that are closer to the real thing. That I am very disappointed we never got to see him out of the water.
I too, yeah. That's such a missed opportunity. They literally never.
We get the one that's sleeping on the beach, that slept on the beach through a boat crash.
Okay. Did it sleep on the beach, or was it paralyzed by the neurotoxin and washed up on the beach and then revived?
I did not think about that.
I took it to say it was.
I have no idea.
But
I took it as it was sunbathing as well.
That was my first thought, but then I noticed it had a notch in the sail, like one of the Spinos in the ocean did. So it's unclear if it was a 5th Spino or a 4th, or one of the 4 that washed up.
We'll be able to tell because all the Spinos have unique sails.
Yeah.
Was it a sail pattern we never seen during the boat fight?
Right, and we'd have to go back through and like compare.
Yeah, that's a someday thing.
That's why the notch made me think it might have been one that had washed up from the chase in the first place.
I'm willing to believe that because the Spinos had followed them close enough, they just weren't coming up. And that's what was really bothering me is like the paleontologists were saying, let's get the fuck out of here. They're amphibious and people are not heating him very well. And the Spinos are like out in the ocean, like the sails are going by, and that's just like, I guess, a design like, hey, somebody on, running the ILM computers, like put some sails going by in the background.
Yeah.
It's like, but dude, these things would have no problem coming up and nipping these guys. But only one does?
You never even get to see their legs, pretty much, right?
No.
Yeah, you only get the upper torso coming out of the water, and then you get them swimming around. You never see the tails either, really, do you?
Very
we don't even know if they have tadpole tails.
Corners.
No, we see a bit of that.
Do we? Do we see enough of the tail to actually see if it's tadpole?
We see like brief glimpses.
Maybe when the one got up, but I don't remember.
Yeah, maybe there's in the background of some shots you can see it, and maybe when they're swimming you can tell. But yeah, I don't remember.
No, I think we got enough of that.
Okay.
But yeah, I think that was a deliberate design choice of never show the legs because there's so much debate over.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Are they hedging their bets as to the proportions of the body of a Spinosaurus? That kind of makes sense.
Which they still could have shown the one that came up and got her, but again, they did it completely.
Yeah.
That, however, if I remember right, because I've seen more of, even before he did Godzilla in 2014, I've seen other Gareth Edwards films, and one of them he did was a monster flick, although this wasn't nearly as good as that, but that was a character-driven movie.
Oh, like his first big.
Yeah, it's just
thing,
called, I think it's
Monsters
just
or
called
whatever.
Monsters.
Yeah. Never saw
Monster
it.
Monsters,
It is really fucking good. I watched it
It's
randomly
been on the
Netflix.
list to see at some point, but
And he had little touches of that here, but clearly he's still working with a major studio franchise, and he's done that with Godzilla, and he did good with Godzilla too.
Yeah, this one was a unfortunate miss.
Yeah,
For
yeah.
Gareth Edwards.
he still had his touches here and there.
Yeah,
I feel like the stuff that I feel most echoed him was stuff that veered a little too kaiju for me.
yeah, for sure.
Like
Well, he likes that
The
kind of
smoke
thing.
and the
Right,
D-Rex and
right. Like some of the other stuff was executed really well. Like everything with the T-Rex river chase was great. I really liked that T-Rex design.
Yeah.
I really liked the vibe of the scene of the T-Rex sleeping and rolling around and taking a drink, and like obviously they're echoing a lot of stuff from the novel in that scene, but they still portrayed it. They did a pretty good job, I think, in that scene of portraying it as a curious animal instead of like a psycho predator.
Yes,
Which is good.
Excellent job
Yeah.
there.
The whole Rex scene
100%.
stand out. Great sequence. It's just too bad that I had essentially seen everything from it because they knew it was a standout scene, which is why it was so centered in the marketing.
Yeah. Titanosaurs too.
Yeah, the Titanosaurs, and this is something you talked about on like one of your trailer or like the second trailer. Like, man, that was a big fucking herd of Titanosaurs.
And it's made worse because in the movie dialogue they say they stay isolated in the central valley of the island, which is just like, oh, so there's 100 Titanosaurs and they only live in this one part of the island and somehow there's still plants there? Bullshit.
Yeah.
Exclusively Titanosaurs.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, they did not need that wow factor of that many of them. I get what they're going for. They're like, look, they're thriving in this situation. Good for them.
Very.
But it's like, could we choose a smaller dinosaur to thrive?
Yeah, the whole film feels like it's written and directed as like a popcorn action movie, and it doesn't have that much deeper to say, which I think is unfortunate because there's a lot deeper things that are said in the first movie.
Yeah.
Like even though they have a little commentary on like big pharma type shit, it's very surface level.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of it is pretty surface level.
Yeah, which is it's unfortunate. It doesn't
because they can't say much more.
sure.
Yeah.
Because there's fucking whole ass lobbyists out there that'll be like, we're not gonna let you advertise with our, because they have ties into whatever fucking not pop culture, but
military consultants.
yeah, like we're not gonna let you say these things about us being terrible.
Yeah.
And that also just comes into the world building where it doesn't feel like there was much effort put into thinking about the world.
Yeah.
It's very much this is the story we want to tell, and this is what the world has to be to make it work, and so we're just doing that.
What kind of cool shit do we want to put in here?
We're smoothing over and not worrying too much about justifying any of this. That's unfortunate. The Titanosaur design is pretty interesting. They have little fibers on their legs. You can see, which I like because this is an interesting discussion. So pterosaurs are now known to have feathers, not pycnofibers. Pycnofibers has been dropped as a scientific concept, at least largely. There's branching feathers found on like a Tapajara type pterosaur that prove that the fibers are feathers. So that moves feathers as to kind of potentially a basal trait of the pterosaur dinosaur split, which means that the genes for feathers would be in every single dinosaur. Whether or not they expressed them, whether they had feathers or lost their feathers at some point in their evolutionary history is one thing. But
Or just
I think
maturity.
Right, maturity, that too. But I think it's really fun if this was the intention of having the Titanosaurs give elephant vibes of being largely naked when you look at them, but if you get real close, you can see the little hairs on an elephant or the little feathers on a Titanosaur that are that little hint of like their evolutionary history of where they came from. So I really like that. What concerns me is they're little like fibers, so they could also literally just be hair on an elephant.
Yeah.
And they could have put no thought in the film into them being feathers, and they literally just echoed, the vibe of an elephant a little bit.
Right.
I also think the Titanosaurs are like comically oversized. But I need to like scale it to really see that.
No, that was real. But they wanted to make them so much more holy shit than just the Brachiosaurs. Because like it's the same thing that they're saying in like Brachiosaurs are boring. We need something bigger. Yeah. Like you could do like just having them have the different design and get that full on whip crack Diplodocus tail going in there.
Which is not like a Titanosaur thing. So it's like, why did they not just do like Seismosaurus, which also has a sick marketable name? Like,
that one sounds cool as well. But I think I get that of like Titanosaurus sounds.
Maybe to try to keep the through line that they're all hybrids and stuff. Maybe.
I mean, there has to be because putting fucking raising and lowering sails on their necks and tail or on their haunches. Yeah. That was. I did not like that part of their design at all.
Kaiju influence.
I thought it was interesting that they're deployable sails. They're not like rigid Spinosaurus styles sails.
See, but that could have made more sense because then you just say that they have some fucking Baja or not Bajasaurus.
A Bajatosaurus or a Margosaurus.
Yeah, like you have some of that aspect in them.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind the sails. Titanosaurus is barely an animal that actually exists, so they picked it because it sounds like a cool name, but also they like went really hard on speculatory elements of the animal, so it's probably for the best that they picked an animal that we have like one fucking knuckle bone from or whatever the hell it is.
Fair.
So in the film, do you remember what the weight estimate they give for the Titanosaurs was? Because they do it in the museum. I think they say like 11 tons.
Ooh, that's
which is
tiny.
Yeah. I just looked up like the IRL estimate for like the weight of a Brachiosaurus. It's like 28 to 47 metric tons. So if they said 11 tons, that's like comically low.
That's like just over an elephant.
Yeah, so I would really like to rewatch that and see if they actually did say 11 tons, because that is, if that's actually what they say, that's irreconcilable with reality.
Yeah.
It just...
Well, it turns into more of a reshoot and post-production changes.
Yeah.
Like maybe in regular production they weren't nearly that big. Because there was also, speaking of suspending disbelief, now, while I'm willing to buy the Rex pulling the Batman moment with the thing, because they're like, oh, he rolled onto the other side of the hill, and it's a Rex. We've shown that they don't always have to ripple water in a glass. Mm-hmm. They can be stealthy when they need to be. Although he was just waking up and rolling over and plodding his way to the thing, but it wasn't shaking the ground as the Rex plodded its way to get a drink of water. No. I liked all that. So again, pointing out that the river scene is probably one of the best fucking bits in the movie. But the fact that they're all wandering through big, slightly rolling grassy plains and no one notices the Titanosaur on the other side of the hill.
Yeah, that was like, are they all laying down on the grass? What is going on?
That's what I was thinking. Like, there's no way. Yeah. This is supposed to be the biggest of the big.
Yeah.
And so that, to me, goes also into the Titanosaurs were not, or whatever they were going to use for this. Well, they were naming Titanosaur. We're never going to be that fucking big,
right?
When they were originally filming and giving like the actors like, here's your sightline cues, and like what they did for the old Rexes of putting a tennis ball up on a big stick kind of thing. Like, here's where you're looking. Mm-hmm. Like that was never going to be, and that can still hold because I'm not certain, but I think it was a practical effect. The leg that the paleontologist stands next to,
potentially,
and that still would have held up even if that leg was only going to like the Brachiosaur from JP1 kind of thing. If you were to walk right up to it.
I would be really curious to see a size estimate of the animal based on specifically the leg scene. Yeah. Which is the best example you get of like a person versus like the physical dimensions of the animal.
Well, in the CGI, I think they showed him far distant shots walking up to him. But that's all post-production. We don't know what those proportions were going to be.
Yeah, and it can be tricky to get the proportions of something from a film shot because... Like, even talking about a practical effect, like, the depth of field matters for the apparent size of the thing. Lord of the Rings, right? Mm-hmm. Elijah Wood actually is not 2 feet tall. That's all tricks.
Nonsense. He's short.
But, like, there's some element of, like, accidentally having that kind of perspective trick in a film when you're making it, right? So you can explain some CG size differences away with that, with, like, the meta-knowledge of it's a film, and sometimes things can appear bigger than life and whatnot. I remembered the callback I hated. I'm completely unconnected to anything. It just popped into my head. Objects in the mirror are close.
Oh, yeah.
Holy shit, that
Oh,
was
mirror
so
too.
fucking out of place.
Yeah.
That one, see, that's like the Snicker bar thing. That doesn't bother me at all because it was so just this is a quick establishing shot of him stuck in traffic.
Yeah, but why did it have to be a callback, right? It bothered me because it has no purpose artistically beyond being a callback to the fact that is set on a mirror.
Yeah, but that one doesn't bother me because, except for the fact that mirrors say that less and less these
It
days.
is on the left mirror, and those never have that. The right
Is it?
mirrors usually do. At least that's how it is on my car.
Oh,
I
okay.
believe it is on the right mirror in JP.
Like
Yeah, in both.
I would have literally forgave it more if it was like somebody behind him honked at him and you get the shot of him like looking behind him in the mirror, because then at least justifies the fact that the mirror is there or something, right? But it's literally just using the framing the establishing shot of the character through his driver mirror specifically to have the text to call back to the first film.
Definitely
Very egregious. Hated it. That was the worst member berry in the film for me. And that got me really worried because of how early it happened, but thankfully there wasn't too many egregious ones. Like, this is a problem I had with Alien Romulus, where there was way too much member berry shit, and this did not cross the threshold for me, of being too full of that shit.
They were pretty spaced out.
Yeah. They're spaced out. Most of them were not too egregious in their inclusion. They had some sort of justification. So yeah. Speaking of the early part of the movie in sauropods, we get a dying sauropod, right? Yeah. Did you catch what they called it?
One of the DJs, and I'm definitely citing these motherfuckers because they call them like one of them calls it a Bronto Billy or something.
Yeah,
like
it had a name that
and
was
another
like
one
that.
calls it a Brachiosaur.
Right.
In the same moment, they both call it two different things.
Yeah, they call it specifically like Bronto Billy or Bronto whatever.
Yeah.
As like a nickname, right? The nickname is Bronto in the title. Fine, acceptable. And then they explicitly say the full word Brachiosaurus. It's possibly the last.
A different DJ says that.
It's possibly like the last Brachiosaurus or last sauropod on the entire North American continent, right? And then we see the animal that is dying, and it, as far as I could tell, is just a Jurassic World Apatosaurus.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
So what the fuck?
I mean, this may come as a shock to you, but most radio DJs aren't paleontological nerds.
Right. So here's the thing, right? Is it intended to be a mistake by the DJ? In which case, like, you can explain it as that. So this is not going to be a canon-breaking moment in any way, right? The DJ is just wrong, obviously. But is the DJ wrong because the people who made the film are wrong and didn't know what a fucking Brachiosaurus was?
I think if anything, it would have been intentional on the level of this is how zero fucks people give about dinosaurs.
Potentially true, but it's the same problem I have when people talk about the semi-satirical aspects of Jurassic World. Of like, does Jurassic World says these things about people getting bored with dinosaurs as a meta thing, talking about people getting bored with dinosaur movies, right? And I've never been fully convinced that is not just a happy accident.
Yeah.
And it's the same case here of like, is it deliberate that the DJ is making a mistake, or did the film make a mistake? No idea. You cannot tell.
The fact that both of them in the same back and forth morning show thing say it different ways completely makes me think they're aware. Fully aware.
So for me, there's another thing that happens a few minutes after that in the museum that makes me think the movie is just not very interested in the science. And that is when the paleontologist talking to the mercenaries talks about looking for DNA from the three largest dinosaurs. Yeah. Two of which are not dinosaurs. Right. And he at no point does the I'm actually nerd thing and says that actually these aren't dinosaurs.
Yeah.
Now, again, you can explain it to he knows the people he's talking to don't give a shit. He's not going to bother clarifying what is and isn't a dinosaur. It doesn't matter for the mission. Nobody cares in the context of the film. Yeah. But again, I'm already in the point of view of the Brachiosaur slip of like, do the people making this film give a shit about what is and isn't a dinosaur and what the science behind the movies is originally? Or is it just sloppy filmmaking? And I have no idea as a viewer if it's A or B.
Well, see, remember earlier when you were pointing out how the nerds need to let go that the marketing stuff does not canon towards the movie?
Yes.
This is the same semantics argument.
Yeah, well, it's a little different.
It's right.
It's not me arguing if they're breaking canon. It's me arguing whether or not they gave a shit about the real world science.
No, I get that, but it's also of like, but there's no.
And
sense
also,
in
if it impacts, if it has to do with like the story they're trying to tell, also.
And I don't believe it does at all.
And this is a larger complaint I have with the World trilogy in general, and the state of the franchise currently is after the Spielberg era. There was no, well, even JP3, after JP3, there was not much interest in keeping up with the science in the franchise, right?
Yeah.
And like, other than like the Dilophosaurus design and the oversized raptors, like there was a real effort made in, especially the 93 Jurassic, of scientific accuracy, but not at the expense of excitement in the films, right?
Yeah.
So they took scientific accuracy, they added some extra embellishments to make different dinosaurs stand out more from each other, which is largely why the Dilo has a frill and is sized differently to make it stand out from the raptor. But they still tried to, they still cared about scientific accuracy back then. And they really haven't given a shit in the World trilogy. And I would have liked to see this film turn more towards scientific accuracy again. And it doesn't. In fact, the director came out in an interview and said that he doesn't think feathered dinosaurs are scary, which is fucking fine, but like, can you not say that? This is a fucking nonsense thing we've been dealing with for so long. Yeah. And Dominion finally gave us feathered dinosaurs, and then the next movie, the director comes out and says, yeah, but actually they suck. And like, they didn't. They were largely pretty damn good in Dominion, design-wise, with the feathered animals. Pyroraptor face aside. None of my complaints in Dominion really have to do with any of the creature designs. A lot of people hate the Giga. I don't even care about the Giga because he's inconsequential.
Right.
But a lot of the other animal designs are fantastic in Dominion. So, and largely, I'm pretty happy with the animal designs again in this film. But yeah.
Mutants aside.
Yeah. The Kets is weird to me because we do see a skeleton in the museum that resembles the Kets.
It has the hook on
it. Has the hook on the nose.
I didn't like that.
So one thing with the museum is the museum set represents the Neo-Jurassic age, which they do say in the film. So it is possible every skeleton in that museum is a cloned animal skeleton. There's some stuff that points towards the skeleton of the Rex being Rexy.
I am so fucking... I heard those rumors too. I'm so fucking glad that was not confirmed.
Yeah, it's not confirmed in the film, which is great. There's no confirmation about Rexy being dead or alive in the film, which is great.
Yes.
That people believe she went to a farm upstate and is living her life.
And that's fine.
That's the way to do it. No, that I agree with from a standpoint.
Yeah, I would have been much more upset if they said, "Oh yeah, in fact, this was the original," and like.
Yeah. I don't like when a new trilogy or a new sequel feels the need to come in and be like, everything you liked is dead. Even if in the context of the story they probably are, the story has no reason to confirm they are dead. Let people have their fantasies where it doesn't matter to the story they're telling. So yeah. But yeah, if that's the case, then I guess it's a Masrani era Kets, and the more accurate Kets we see in Dominion is a newer Biosyn clone, which is why it's more accurate. Fine.
That
it's explainable.
Makes some sense, yeah. Quick to distract you completely here. You need to amend some of your citation on your unbalanced stegosaur, because I've got that motherfucker stable.
Yeah, yours is pretty good.
I just need to work the leg joints a little bit.
Yeah, I think some of the ankles on mine, I couldn't really get the.
Well, these were resistant until I looked and I could see where they lined up, and I intentionally all right, we're tweaking them.
Yeah, no, this is pretty good.
Yeah. I mean, you still gave it a good rating, so you'd have to amend the whole thing.
Yeah.
Yes, we're now. I mean, we did do the unboxing to start it, and we had to come back around to it. So though,
I think the paint alignment on yours is better than mine too, because I think I want to say the shoulder, I can see the green on the limb, and then there's more of a gap. I'd have to actually look at mine directly to see that, but I'm pretty sure there was a bit of a paint gap on the body, and yours is very nicely blended. So.
Well, and like you said though, its quality control was a problem.
I had today I saw a random thread on the Hammond Collection subreddit, which I frequent occasionally to look for any information about leaks or upcoming figures. Somebody pointed out a quality control issue in their Ankylosaurus figure where the feet are mirrored. And so I grabbed mine off the shelf. I looked at it. Motherfucker's got mirrored feet. He's got two left feet.
That's hilarious.
I never knew. I never caught it because it's subtle enough.
Yeah. And it's Anky, so the feet are really underneath.
Yeah. And so I left a reply of why did you curse me with this forbidden knowledge? But yeah, fuck.
But yeah, sorry, full distraction. But I feel like we've largely went through what we need to. We're probably well over an hour here.
Oh yeah, no, we're at hour 20-ish. I got a few more comments. Do you want to say something?
I just want to get everyone's sort of temperature on the characters.
Lackluster. I mean, the last character in this franchise.
I guess we kind of touched on that with their arcs and whatnot. But
Yeah.
Okay.
Lack thereof.
Anything specific to add?
Here's what I'm gonna say. We all dislike Dominion. The two new main hero characters, Dominion, Kayla and what's his face, the guy in the control room at Biosyn in Dominion who helps out like Malcolm and Ellie.
Okay.
And slips them like the keycard and stuff.
Oh yeah.
Him, and then Kayla's the pilot that flies the plane to Dominion Sanctuary.
Yeah.
Do you feel like those two characters are more interesting than the characters we get in this film, or not?
Same. Right.
About the same.
Same level.
Okay. I think I might, despite me hating Dominion more, I think I might find those two characters more interesting than our hero characters in this. I feel like the legacy characters in Dominion really sucked, but I think the two new additions were okay. And I'm not saying they're leagues above our current cast in this film, but I think they were a little more interesting to me than most of this one. Yeah. I think my favorite character out of this one is the paleontologist, Loomis. I think he was the standout as far as anybody stands out.
They didn't beat you over the head with his stuff quite as bad.
Yeah.
But they like balanced being subtle about it, but yes, him not having any actually about the three big dinosaurs, that was like maybe he knew enough, like you said, maybe he knew enough. But that is a little weird. I did appreciate that he did point out that he worked under Grant.
Yeah,
right?
that was a fun appropriate callback.
Yeah.
That he did a postdoc under Grant. It makes sense. I like so with his character, one thing I really appreciated with his motivation for going to the island was seeing dinosaurs in their quote unquote natural habitat, which I think is a great inverse of like what they did with Grant in the franchise, where he became jaded and tired of like the clone dinosaurs. This is a nitpick I have with films when scientist characters get shit from people reviewing a film for being curious and interested in the things they're supposed to be curious and interested about. It's like whenever somebody bitches at a scientist for going up and poking the alien in a movie, but like he's there to find an alien.
Yeah.
Of course he's gonna poke the fucking alien. I'd poke the fucking alien.
Yeah.
Come on.
You are this is outside meta knowledge looking at what would a scientist do in this situation, and I'm with you on that.
Yeah. So I'm really appreciative of seeing a paleontologist who is like, yes, I will risk my life to go see dinosaurs, because fuck yeah, let's do it. He makes the one quip in the film that I actually really liked was him talking about how he imagines himself dying in like a shallow inland sea and being covered and fossilizing. And I'm like, that is good. I like that. That's very funny.
Right there with him.
Hell yeah. That was like the one joke that really landed for me.
I also like that he had his mini Malcolm tangent over the destruction. That was, I wish we would have gotten more of it. I hope out there's a longer cut of him going into the, Malcolm's discussion from the beginning, or from the book of mankind will never destroy the earth. Yeah. And his was shorthand of like the earth will buck us off like a cold.
Yeah, and that's where the survival is a long shot line from the trailer comes in. It's much better integrated in the film at the end of that like lecture than as like a comeback quip to like some other conversation.
Yeah,
I forget the exact context.
The way they said it before is like we're in a place we're not supposed to be. Survival's a long shot.
Yeah, exactly.
But his was the wrap up of a Malcolm rant in the Crichton fashion. I like
99.9% of all animals on this planet have gone extinct. Survival is a long shot.
Yeah.
Like that is okay. That is a line that I thought I was going to hate in context was actually salvaged because the trailer cut it into a different conversation, which they do all the time. Good, fine, acceptable.
Yep.
I liked him. I liked that by the end of the film, he doesn't really seem to have lost his like fascination with dinosaurs or anything like that.
Yes.
It's very, very. It would have been very cliche to be like he was a naive person who put himself in over his head and had no business being there. But he did a good job taking care of himself in a survival situation. He's put in perilous situations, and he isn't just the panic guy that everybody else has to take care of. He like takes initiative, saves the sample. Like he goes through some shit and doesn't come out of it a sniveling wreck. I appreciate that. I like seeing a scientist have a little Half-Life franchise in them and like get shit done.
Well, and also not long-term Grant mode. He isn't like presumably not completed jaded by this and like fucking dinosaurs. I never want to see another one.
Yeah. I think I would be completely okay if they brought him back in a sequel film and he was like, fuck yeah, we got to help the dinosaurs more than we have been. Because he's kind of established as being that character, being working in this museum, and he has dialogue about how disappointed he is that interest is waning. And he calls they bring up some neurotoxin to like defend themselves against the dinosaurs, and he says that like killing a dinosaur is a sin, and I like that too. Of like this man's a true believer in the dinosaurs, and I like that as a character in the film.
Yeah, a little. He has
a good counterbalance to the cynicism.
That just solidified into me what he was, and he is the amalgam of Grant and Malcolm.
Except without being jaded or cynical by the end of the experience.
But also in the like Malcolm's early line is like what you call what exploration I call the rape of the natural world. Yeah. Like, because Malcolm's not a pious man either, and neither is this Loomis made out to be, but he still calls killing a dinosaur a sin. Mm-hmm. Like, that actually worried me for a second. I'm like, please don't make him preachy after this. Right. But it never got to be that, and that's where I think I like that he is, where if we want to look at this in the retrospect of the series, I feel like Chris Pratt and Owen was them trying to like, how do we bring back Muldoon and make him the badass that he was supposed to be? Yeah. And like that's like how do we make Muldoon the action hero he should have been? Mm-hmm. That he was closer to being in the books with the Muldoon quote that's never been used in this fucking franchise, and it's my favorite one in the whole goddamn books, and that is like to live dangerously, and they've never used it. Like him just over the shoulder going to Gennaro, hey, like to live dangerously? We're about to go try and put a tranquilizer fucking rocket launcher into a Rex that's really distracted by the river right now for some reason. Like, I fucking loved that, but that we've never got that. And I guess we should almost be thankful that they didn't try and do a catchphrase to go along with Owen's hand thing.
Right.
They did the hand thing too much, yes. But like he never got I thought maybe they thought they were sneaky like that. He doesn't have a catchphrase. People won't get sick of Chris Pratt. Yeah. Well, no, thanks to Chris Pratt being Chris Pratt, they've gotten sick of him.
Okay, unrelated to the film, about the Rex being tranquilized in the novel. Do you think that Rex drowns and dies? It's not in the population count at the end of the novel. There's only one Rex counted. Is it just sleeping it off, and that's why it's not counted because it's not moving?
I don't think it drowns because I don't think they didn't establish that pond down there. It was a natural, or it was a fake pond. Yeah. So I don't think it was it didn't have to have like the fake waterfall beating the hole into the water. I don't think it like for sure drowns. Right. It might have, but I don't think like it's definitely dead. That's not.
Well, I mean, it's definitely dead because the island gets napalm.
Well, besides the napalm,
but other than that,
I don't think the napalm I don't think the trank is what kills.
Yeah, just a little interesting thing that I've seen people discuss before, and like, I wonder if it did drown. Completely unimportant. Speaking of dinosaurs dying, they shot a dinosaur to death with a gun in this movie.
Well, a mutant dinosaur.
Well, yes, but still, I don't think that's ever happened explicitly, right? There's the raptor at the start of Jurassic Park, but you don't see it being shot. You don't even see guns being fired. It's just the scene fades out with the shocks transitioning into gunshots. Yeah. Which is also...
But we know she doesn't die because that's the big one.
Do we?
He says that's the big one came in and took over the Pride.
He says that, but we don't know if that raptor at the start is the big one.
Oh, well, I mean...
So if the raptor... So I've always felt like the raptor at the start is shot to death and dies and is a fourth member of the pack that they explicitly don't talk about after that fact. They say the big one came and killed all but two of the others, and that is a deliberate cover lie for the one that they had to shoot to death because it mauled a guy.
Oh... I guess I'm willing to believe that. I just always...
It doesn't matter to the film, ultimately. It's just a curiosity.
Right. I just always thought it was the big one because also it's the one that Muldoon has it out for.
It definitely... The film is set up in a way where it does feel like the big one. Mm-hmm. It's just the gunshots that make you go scratch your head a little bit. And like, that raptor's got to be dead.
But that's also, like, the gunshots is also a post-production thing that like someone can just put in over there.
Yeah.
And And they also weren't hitting her for shit with the shocks either, seemingly.
Right.
They're shooting into the dark here, like trying to angle the barrel and
you don't see them like the gunshots happen, but you don't see where the guns are pointed.
Yeah.
You don't know if any of the shots connect. Maybe they all
deflect. Dune had the shotguns.
I'm pretty sure you do see some other guns in the opening scene, but I'm not completely sure.
Oh no, we gotta rewatch.
Yeah, I've got it in my mind to record a commentary for Jurassic Park. So I think I have actually a lot that I could say about little weird details like that from the perspective of a super fan, essentially.
Right.
But I won't get into that too much here. So they shoot to death a Mutodon with a gun. Pretty crazy. People were pretty well convinced. I was pretty well convinced that current era Universal essentially refused to show a dinosaur being killed explicitly by humans at this point.
Delta gets blown the fuck up.
Yeah, that's true. That is a very good point that Delta does get...
you want to talk about egregious fucking deaths in this unearned series. Delta, looking up and, recognizing Owen and being like, oh shit. Being like the cat caught with a dead mouse or, the dead gerbil for a moment and, and then fucking rockets. I hated that moment.
That doesn't necessarily counter my thread because Universal really didn't give a shit about Jurassic World before it came out, which is why it had terrible marketing and
then it hit and
merchandise. There was no merch.
The franchise is alive. Let's fucking go. Yeah,
so, I think Universal took a much heavier hand after World came out. So I think Delta being killed there, just the timetable I was describing, but doesn't undermine my point completely. But apparently they're okay with it, at least in the context of this film. So throw that conspiracy theory out the window. Because this is something that's come up a lot in the Jurassic World evolution discussions of why can't we shoot our dinosaurs to death with guns because we're psychopaths?
Oh, yeah.
And it's like,
But that's been a thing since Operation Genesis.
Well, that's why people bring it up, right? In Operation Genesis, you can retire and deliberately kill a dinosaur.
Oh, you could? I forgot about that.
Yeah, you can. You can. There's even a lethal gene you can trigger to kill a dinosaur remotely as an upgrade. That's really expensive and pointless, and you would never realistically make use of it. But it exists. The thing people have always fed each other is that Universal has the final say and everything that goes into the game. So Universal probably doesn't want any scenes of humans directly killing dinosaurs. But this film undermines that because it does have that. Maybe the asterisk is the fact that it is a horrible mutant and not a literal normal dinosaur. But I also don't feel like Universal would draw the distinction in that way. So.
No, it's just one of the animals.
So that theory probably thrown out the window.
Thanks to this movie. So it's done something good at least for us.
Yeah. I have one last comment in my notebook. Gas-powered vehicle that they start on the island there at the end for the farmer guy to escape, right?
Yeah.
Gas doesn't last for more than a year.
Right.
It's not stable enough. So that's my interest in post-apocalyptic fiction makes me cringe every time that happens in every movie in post-apocalyptic and rundown environment thing that has ever existed, because it always happens, of somebody starting a vehicle that should never fucking start because the gas is turned to water. It happens in Jurassic World with a Jeep.
Oh, yeah.
And it happens here. And we do know that the Jeeps in Jurassic Park were gas Jeeps because they explicitly say a gas-powered Jeep.
Because Harding says.
Yeah. Happens in The Walking Dead, happens in fucking everything.
Yeah.
Just a huge pet peeve of mine. I thought I'd bring up that it also is repeated here, so you can, feel my.
Well, are we certain this one was gas and not electric? I mean,
think so. So
I believe there's an engine.
So it sounded like a gas vehicle to me. There's also the part where he finds the key, which my interpretation of that is there are locking gas caps that you need the key to open.
Oh, yeah, and the key was in the gas cap, and he pulled it out.
It seemed like the key was in the gas cap, and it was parked at a gas station in front of a gas pump.
Right.
So I strongly interpret that to be a gas vehicle that somehow functions 17 years after.
So yeah, it's just a shitty trope that no one in media cares about.
Yeah, and they didn't even do there was no hand waving of repairing it either. It literally just starts it. So
yeah,
whatever.
More reason I thought he should have been punished for that one.
Yeah.
Like the Mutodon should have got him for trying that stunt.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I thought was going to happen because you could see the
he
Mutodons
tries to start the engine and it's like, are you fucking stupid? It's not going to start, and the dinosaur just rips him out.
And I swear it jumped on top of it, and like you could see its wings going on the side of the vehicle when he was trying to start. I thought he was getting got at that point. And then all of a sudden he starts driving off. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah. It's like an open cage vehicle. How did he survive any direct engagement with the enemy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just so they could do their bit of like pedestrian in front of you off the GPS, which also that's what made me think it was electric. Was the GPS and stuff all automatically starting and going and things like that?
Here's a good
pedestrian
question.
in front of you.
Does any of that mesh with a 2010 tech level?
I don't think so.
I mean, Prius.
Electric vehicles. I mean,
No, Priuses were running in the early 2000s.
2006, yeah.
No, well, yeah, but that was just
We can also asterisk it with its clearly a divergent timeline at
Yes.
this point. So
right.
fine, it's acceptable.
I don't remember if the tour vehicles were 100% electric. But
They ran on the track.
Yeah.
So they were electric vehicles,
they
but
were
not
basically
self-contained,
like a
not battery powered.
Yeah.
They were,
Yeah, and I like the geothermal still functioning build. I like, again, so many things. That's like my full take from all of this is so they better usage than Jurassic Park 3 of novel things.
Yeah.
Beats from the novels I thought got implemented better. And I think if anything, I think that's Coa being like after Jurassic Park 3 because I don't think he wrote that one. I'd have to verify that he did. He wrote
the first two.
He for sure wrote the first two.
Right, just the first two, I think. I don't think he had anything in 3.
I don't think so. And I feel like that might have been his I want to crack at this.
Yeah, this feels a little bit almost in a way like another draft of the Lost World. Like you could almost have had this be like a redraft of Lost World.
Well, Lost World, like I said, this could have been what he wishes 3 should have been in his mind. A little bit. Like, because you could see Loomis, having been Grant, offered all that money as well, in the same way that the Kirbys trick him into.
Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of elements coming from both the novels and then, like, Jurassic Park 3 especially.
Yeah. And that kind of fits in with the fact that, remember, William H. Macy had the big comment in an interview leading up to Jurassic Park 3's pressing tour of saying, like, who launches a $10 or $100,000 boat without a rudder on it? Because he's like, we didn't have a finished script.
Yeah.
And I remember he caught flack for saying that, and like he was right though.
Yeah. So he didn't do anything in JP3.
Didn't think so. So yeah, this is
Lost,
him.
Lost World was his last franchise screenplay credit.
Yeah, this is him saying like, man, there's all these cool scenes I wanted to write.
Yeah, this is definitely. Okay, so one complaint people have with the Lost World is it doesn't have much in common with the novel, and this film did have a lot in common with the Lost World novel, both like setting and plot wise.
Yeah, with the exception of like, well, Dodgson's dead now, so we need somebody else to want to be dumb enough to go after DNA.
Yeah. Krebs is really like
novel Dodgson.
Yeah, he's really novel Dodgson coded.
Yeah.
Without being quite as over the top as evil as novel Dodgson is. He's more subtle about it.
Yes.
They don't follow the two parties element of the novel. They combine it into one party.
But then they split them. He has the Dodgson knocking Harding over the fucking boat rail.
Yeah,
from the Lost
I didn't
World.
even think about that. You're absolutely right.
No, this is totally Coa wanted to do Dodgson.
He's Dodgson 2.0.
Yep.
This is absolutely intentional. So that makes everything, including like your comment of echoing the Dodgson under the car and Sarah Harding thing, like deliberate. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So it's interesting.
Which is, again, these are all things that endeared it to me, even though, yes, it's not high up there. But, yeah, I think this beats out Jurassic Park 3 for me.
Okay. Yeah, I can respect that. I just, like I said before, it falls in the morass of where it's really hard for me to separate these films and rank them.
Yeah.
Because there's things I like and things I don't like from most of these films at that point.
Oh, yeah, there's still, like I said, with the Mutodons and so many other things, and Distortus, other than... The only thing I, again, liked about Distortus is the fact that the design meant that it had to be a plotting, slow animal, or a creature.
Oh, yeah, I was going to say, I think at this point I didn't get through about the Distortus, the quadrupedality of that thing. Like, this is a big thing that comes up with when quadrupedal Spinosaurus was a thing for a little bit. Of people being like, theropods do not have wrists. that support being a quadruped
Right.
at all. And so this is a problem I have with the Distortus Rex, is that it's completely unbelievable to me that this thing would walk around like a gorilla, because that is not a thing theropods have ever done.
Right.
Ever. Not a single theropod in the fossil record since fucking Herrerasaurus or whatever has ever re-evolved quadrupedality.
Right. And that was that 65 Adam Driver flick. Like, we need a like, for some reason our theropod, or not theropod, but our carnivore is going to be a quadruped for some fuck all reason. And so I think, that's similar here, but man, it's...
And in the same vein, I think that's why we never see the Spinosaurs out of water, because they dodge the quadrupedal thing.
That I understand. Like, if that had been the one, but man, imagine if somehow, if we don't mess with the helicopter thing, but I guess they had to do the helicopter thing and taking down the helicopter, but then again, they could have done the Lost World movie version where the Pteranodons come in, or the Ketzes come in, like, and they fuck up the helicopter rescue.
That would have been better.
And then you have the Carnos threatening the people instead of the Mutodons. And then if you need something to destroy the car so they can't drive them away, bring in the fucking Maiasaurs. The vengeful goddamn Maiasaurs.
Oh, I'm so disappointed Maiasaurid wasn't in the film. Because it was rumored from the beginning, and it has the toy. Like, I wonder if it was cut. You talked before about cut scenes. So it's been said online, I believe, in an interview that this is the extended version.
Oh.
That the original cut that was provided to the studio was shorter, and the studio came back with notes to put some scenes back in, that the movie could be longer. So they've also said there are still 3 deleted scenes that will probably be revealed later, but not in the context of like the extended edition. Like this is apparently, if my information I've heard is correct, and I like, it's the internet, it can be complete bullshit.
Right.
We probably don't get any substantial extended edition that really recontextualizes much of anything. So yeah. But yeah, I
what are the 3 scenes? You can't just leave us hanging. Like
we don't know.
Oh.
They haven't said what they are beyond there being 3 deleted scenes that probably come out on home video. But yeah, I was a little disappointed to not see more herbivores beyond the Titanosaur scene. We get a throwaway near car crash with an Anki, which isn't a bad scene. Actually looks like a redesigned Anki slightly, which was surprising. Still has the very incorrect like turtle shell type vibe to it, which is completely wrong for an Ankylosaur. But the head was a little more squat, which I think the Dominion design was maybe a little more squat too. So maybe it's just the Anki design from the Dominion prologue and not actually any changes to it, but it's such a quick, like, it's literally like a second.
Blink and you miss it, he drives. I did like that they didn't completely just redo the Nedry thing. I'm like, oh no, he's going to go into the ditch now, he's going to be stuck there and get out, and someone gets him there because he's out of the car. He's like, nope, just keeps going on a different pathway or something. Like, okay.
No Stegosaurus in the film. The only trike we see is at the very start in a tank with like 2-headed Triceratops, juvenile. Other than the Titanosaurs and the Anki, do we see another living herbivore in this film? Other than the dying Apatosaurus on the mainland, which doesn't count.
No, I don't think so.
I don't think we do either.
There's the implication. There's the implication that was what is in the woods when the guy says, "Let's," like, goes to machete with his stick and spook something.
I was wondering if that sound it makes could be traced to any particular animal. I didn't immediately recognize it, but a lot of the later herbivores especially have very generic sounds.
Yeah.
Nothing ever really comes close to the first 2 films in terms of animal sound design, unfortunately, in the later films.
Not surprising. You don't have Stan Winston and like ILM behind it anymore.
Yeah, we get a few ambient shots of animals doing shit, but it's always like pterosaurs or birds, and then like the amphibians we get a couple shots of. No assemblage of herbivores on the riverbank type scene like in JP3, which I think would have been fun to get a little bit more of a vibe like that.
There was no reason that they couldn't have done that with the river scene here either.
Yeah.
That was an easy shoe-in for them. That they didn't go for.
We don't even see them go down the river at all, right? After the wreck scene ends and they get the raft back, they just show up at the town, right?
I mean, they end up at the tubes right outside of the town, going through the marsh. That's where we get to see the salamander again. Like the salamanders that keep going up in trees and sunning themselves for some reason.
Yeah, that was pretty weird. It would have been better if it was like chasing a bug or something.
Right.
Yeah, I think there are little throwaway dinosaur scenes we get, but it's always like a carnivore, except for that one Anki shot. Like we get the blue and red copies.
Yeah.
Very poison dart frog coated.
Which I actually kind of like. I didn't think about the poison dart frog part.
Yeah.
I like that way better now.
It's interesting. I wish they would have done more because it's an interesting take on a compy, but it has no consequence of anything. It's I could see that being like a cut scene. I really so a slight aside that has nothing to do with this film. So I'm working on a dinosaur video game, right? One of the things I want to do in that is a cheeky little reference is make Dilophosaurus poisonous, but poisonous on contact, like a poison frog, not spitting poison.
Well, so literally make him poisonous, not venomous.
Yeah, exactly. So I want my Dilophosaur design to be like the same vibrant, bright, like poison dart frog colors and like contact poison type shit. Yeah. I think that would be a fun riff on, otherwise a reasonably paleo accurate modern Dilophosaur design. He just happens to secrete toxins from the skin.
Right.
And so that's kind of the vibe I got from these compies, which would be a really interesting riff on, so Camp Cretaceous establishes that compies are poisonous like they are in the novel.
Oh,
that's the only time it's actually ever come up. And so it would have been kind of a fun twist to have like super toxic poison dart frog compies as a twist on the, poison bite compies of the novel in Camp Cretaceous. But we didn't get it. We only get it implied by the colorization.
Right. Which was still, I liked it as a little bit.
Yeah. I generally really like the designs of the animals in the film and the colors. Possibly my favorite T-Rex design in the franchise. I really like the Rex.
Yeah, this thing had a lot of bulk to it.
Yeah, very bulky, like in the sense of like a lot of modern Rex designs.
Yep.
Like paleo accurate designs.
Yeah,
for
and
Rex
movement felt like appropriately, for the most part, like he wasn't just chasing after like full tilt. But like you said, this was all more curiosity than this was a well-fed Rex that's just like, hey, are you fucking with my kill or what's going on here?
Which I really like. That's how I personally read the Rex attack in the first film, as a curious animal interacting with some curiosities, which is why it chases the flare and the lights, because it's not hunting, it's just kind of playing.
Yeah.
And humans being around an animal that big that's playing is deadly.
Right, and that's why it just chew toys Gennaro instead of swallowing him.
Yeah.
It just grabs him, fucks him up a little bit like a dog playing.
Yeah. Yeah, and it chases Malcolm, sends him flying, but doesn't eat him, just knocks him away and like. Yeah.
Doesn't eat anything, and that there again though that's going to novel shit of like that's what Malcolm chides Grant for of like the Rex was just fed, even a full goat for that thing that's well routinely fed has no need for want of hunting.
Yeah, definitely the film does a better job of portraying the animals as animals for the most part. So.
Yeah, this did take that step back there with the exception of the mutants. The mutants are fucking assholes still. Yeah,
which at least like there's no like. I was surprised there wasn't like an establishing initial contact with the D-Rex like the Spinosaurus in JP3.
Mm-hmm.
I really went into this film expecting it to come up multiple times in the film and be like a primary chasing antagonist. And it's not that. It's just the finale.
Yeah.
It's the inciting incident at the beginning of the film, and then it comes back only at the finale to terrorize.
When they get in its territory.
In its territory, yeah. So like even that was like surprisingly restrained.
Yeah.
So I can appreciate that at least.
Yeah.
The Mutodons definitely follow them, but like.
Yeah. Though I don't know if they follow them. I think the Mutodons are just fucking OP. They need to be nerfed. It's bullshit that they have full flight. They body the raptors right out of the fucking movie. Yeah. Like that was just. I fully believe that was not something originally in the movie at all.
Yeah, that's very much a fucking Worf effect moment. We're gonna take the previous badass and show the new badass killing it.
Yeah, like I don't.
JP3 Spino.
Yeah, the Mutodons.
Yeah, JP3 Spino and Rex.
Oh god, yeah. So the Mutodons are the new Spino.
Yeah,
Fuck.
Yeah.
Well, that's okay because I've slowly gotten over my hatred of the Spinosaurus from JP3. I still don't like that movie that much, but. Yeah, it's fucking Mutodons.
Yeah, the Mutodons I definitely feel weird about because I think the scenes with them are pretty effective. The D-Rex scenes I don't really care that much about. It could have been any big animal. Whereas the Mutodon is like the right scale to have interesting, intense scenes of it going inside of buildings and sewer pipes and shit.
Oh yeah, speaking onto that, I did think it was a little fucking weird how they did the the aiming a gun at you briefly moment, but I'm really shooting at the thing behind you.
Yeah.
Where Scarlett Johansson, where Zora doesn't say like get down or anything like that. She just lights it up.
Yeah.
I'm torn on that one because okay, on one part she is fucking really good with the gun.
Right.
Like she is supposed to be spec ops. That's all very well established. And oh no, hey, there's another one that actually bothered me. Her misfire on the Mosasaur. When the shot goes wide, like that's exactly why she's like, you're not the scientist ain't taking this shot. You're gonna need someone who's fully fucking perfect. Like not that she had to be perfect in the movie, but it's like she just chides him and talks about it, and Duncan and her joke about how he can't be in charge.
I don't
of us.
mind it because it's almost ties into her maybe underestimating a little bit how good he does at surviving later, and it shows that she's being a little bit maybe overestimating her own capabilities in these kind of scenarios, which kind of ties into previous losses from her team that she talks about and like how more people die on this expedition. She is an overconfident character, so I think I don't mind it. I think it's realistic that she would miss that shot.
I wish they would have waited a little longer.
Yeah.
I think having it, that was the first thing, that's the first badass thing you're supposed to do, and she botches it right away. I think they should have waited a little.
They could have brought it back and maybe had a character comment on it again to make it more clear that it's not like the incidences of like scientific accuracy I cited with the sauropod and calling a Mosasaur a dinosaur early on in the film, of it not just being a mistake in the film, of it being sloppily put together and being deliberate. Because it's another thing where you don't know if it's deliberate that she, sets up herself not missing the shot and then misses the shot. Is that deliberate? Or did they just put that line in and then this other scene was written in a void?
Yeah.
Like,
I think that was fully deliberate.
I do too. But I'm saying
that's
that
why
like,
I think they needed
it's
to
not
let it.
explicit. So.
But that's why I just
and it
think
doesn't
they need to
necessarily
get more time.
need to be. But to be clear, like I don't want this to be like a Netflix production where everything has to be telegraphed and very clearly stated because they expect you to be on your phone the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want that. The problem I have is that when there's multiple incidences where you scratch your head and wonder, do the people making this film care? That's when I start to notice.
Yeah.
Like that's a problem I have with so.
And it's to an annoying degree in this one.
Yeah, like if any one of these three incidences I cite of like the Brachiosaur, Apatosaur incident, the Mosasaur being a dinosaur thing, and then like, is this a deliberate setup for her to miss a shot or not? If any one of these things was the only instance of a moment like that in the film, I wouldn't comment on it. It's the fact that it happened more than once that makes me start to scratch my head as to whether or not this is deliberate and the script is just not telegraphing to you very explicitly what it's doing, or is it a complete accident? And I have no idea. And it keeps happening, and that's weird.
Right. Oh, and I just thought of another perfect example in comparison, and this is where I like this, is but we had the cocky, overconfident character with the could have been what's the seashell? What's the neurotoxin?
Oh,
that Eddie
in
Carr
Lost
has?
World? Oh,
Yeah.
I don't remember.
But him getting taken down by the Spinos after being too cocky, the spiny cone shell like
Jellyfish or something maybe.
no, it was
I think
it was a shell.
shell.
It was a mollusk.
Okay.
But he's like animals down before you can feed the prick of the dart.
Right.
Like what happens if you shoot yourself in the foot? Like Carr sets all that up, and no one gets shot in the foot. Carr is very competent, but before he ever gets to use his gun, we do have the I hate Eddie Carr's death. He deserves so much better. And he gets taken down, not because the Rexes don't have to die, but because his gun's fucking iron sight gets caught in some webbing in his car.
Yeah.
Like, that's kind of what this felt. That's why I was bothered by her missing that shot. It felt like Eddie Carr again.
Right,
Like
no,
that,
I get that.
Like, this is supposed to be the expert you have for good fucking reason. And then her had to have her, like, oh, I jostled, and apparently my trigger discipline isn't good enough, and I had my hand on the trigger when I'm getting bounced around and wasn't ready to take the shot, and now I misfire. Like, no, it seems against the character we had been established so far. Because they weren't establishing, like, oh, she's really shaken about this. Like, there was the night scene. Oh, there was the one fucking big gripe I had that I had to go back to. The fucking musical swell when they're just out at night talking and we get the Jurassic Park theme playing.
Yeah.
I was absolutely beside myself. Like, what the fuck?
There was 2 instances early on. One is the one you're talking about. There was another one, I think, a little bit before that, where the score felt unearned and out of place.
Yeah.
Where people are just like having a scene, like a regular scene and talking, and there's like a noticeable score going on in the background, and it's like, why?
Yeah, that was a very bizarre fucking post-production choice.
Yeah, I feel like a musical score either should blend in with the scene kind of seamlessly, or it should stand out in such a strong way that it shapes the scene deliberately, and this was neither. It was just a score standing out over a scene it had no business standing out in. Like 28 years later, right? Yeah. Me and Eric saw that, loved the movie. It's got some very strong like music video vibes where the score is driving like the editing and the way the film is playing out in front of you, and it's great because that's what it's that is what it is intending to set out to do, and it's what it does. And this was like sound edited like that was going to happen, but the scene was not shot and edited in a way where that actually was happening.
See, okay, so that's the disjointment that I heard from people online.
Okay.
But different movie. We're not getting into that. We're focusing on Jurassic World Rebirth.
Yes, okay. Let me finish my 28 Years Later thing because I love 28 Years Later. There's a lot more things that people say are disjointed about that film than even that. I actually haven't heard anybody call it the score specifically. There's a lot of other tonal things that people have trouble processing.
But maybe this is a trend in fucking movies and that we're seeing now because we don't see a lot of new movies besides, I'm not gonna lie, like Marvel and superhero flicks or what I get out, and the formula is so well honed, and it's a set thing. You're not gonna see a lot of derivatives of superhero movies.
Yeah, I think a lot of the backlash against 28 Years is coming from the younger crowd that has grown up with Marvel movies and a very set in stone blockbuster. This is what a blockbuster movie is, and they expected that. And it's not that.
And also the current modern horror movies.
Yeah.
Which admittedly, 28 Days Later was like a subversion of horror and zombie flicks back then too. And this is like a bringing it back, and that's why I'm happy about it.
Yeah.
And I look forward to seeing it someday.
Yeah, it's a coming of age story that happens to feature
zombies,
quotation mark zombies. Yeah, it's. So I think it's just people are reacting to it more poorly because they had the complete wrong expectations going into it.
So, if we want to talk a rumor mill thing and get back completely on track here,
yes,
and because I was also going to make the joke that everybody's making about 28 Years Later of Zombie Dong.
Yes,
but I'm not. I'm better than that. I'm not going to make that joke. I didn't make that joke. I lampshaded the joke.
28 inches later. Yeah.
But no, I seen a rumor pretty much like in the last 24 hours before going into this that there was going to be a scene that got cut, maybe in the early stages though, or maybe even later, going by one line in this movie, of that they were actually going to feature the dinosaurs breeding.
Yes, the Titanosaur. They described it in an interview as amorous titanosaurs or something like that.
Yeah.
So people imagined
that they were actually
like a cow being layered up on top of another cow, but with titanosaurs.
And Loomis had the line of like, I think they're distracted. Yeah. Like that could have been like that maybe, but no. Now knowing that the description was from amorous titanosaurs, they were clearly showing full on effect like giraffe cuddling kind of stuff.
It was like either an established couple just kind of animal cuddling or like a courtship display.
Right.
So, interesting thing about this. Did you know that this is actually a reference? This is the original scripted Mosasaur scene from Lost World.
Which part?
The Mosasaurus and Lost World were going to be in a... I'm making the scissor motion as if they were going to be scissor. But they were going to be in a courtship display or mating display in the Lost World with the Mosasaurus.
Oh, not just being chased by the hunters?
Yeah. That was the original purpose of the Mosasaurs, and that's why they actually have... You can find on Stan Winston Studios, on either their Facebook page or their website, you can actually find the full maquette head sculpt for the Mosasaurus close-up.
Oh.
And in the film, they're just a stretched and hastily remodeled Brachiosaurus model, CG model from the first film.
Yeah.
And that's because they were originally planned to have a much more extended scene of them doing like a courtship display or mating or something. And that's why they actually had a lot more design work. When it came time to make the actual film and do the scene, they just were a throwaway CG, quick shot.
And it also establishes their lack of accuracy in that things.
Yeah.
Like that. No, I didn't know that, but that's cool.
Yeah, actually, it's not even clear in the context of production for the Lost World that they were supposed to be Mosasaurs. Because the prop head, especially the maquette or prop, I'm not even sure if it's a full animatronic or if it's a maquette, because it is like full scale, very Diplodocus coated. So that explains also the body being very Diplodocus coated, but I think it's Mosasaurus in the script. So there's probably some sort of cross thing going on there,
Right.
where they flip-flop between what animal it was going to be in production versus the script.
Yeah.
And in the film, it just ends up being called Mosasaurus, but very clearly based on a Diplodocus or Diplodocid of some kind.
Well, then that also goes into the same thing that we're running into here of like them switching things out last minute hastily and things. And yeah, so it's like that's just one of those things that's always been around. It doesn't matter if Spielberg has a hand on the production or not, or Stan Winston or whatnot and who have you. It's still going to be. We just don't have the amount of news coverage for modern production that we do then to now. So.
Yeah. It's not as it's not as big, right? Because so much of it's in the computers now, so there's not as much evidence left over after the fact, I guess you could say, of like production changes and stuff like there used to be.
Yeah.
There's not as much to discuss. You can't really sell like a behind the scenes production book anymore on a movie. You could do it for movies back in the 80s and 90s, like Jurassic Park has more than one.
Oh yeah.
But you couldn't do that for this film or Jurassic World because
nobody give a shit.
Yeah.
We already the big fans like us already knew all of it.
Yeah. So much of like stuff is just seat of the pants, cooked on the fly in post production, or just is what we see on the screen. There's not. It doesn't take as much work to design these animals when you're just going to render them in CG versus having animatronics. So, but and if the Mutadons were originally raptors, and were replaced, that's not like a filmmaking problem from the perspective of film. Like they're fully within their rights to like do that. I just wish they were raptors. So I'm not saying that it's like some production mistake from the context of it being a film. It's just personally I would have liked dinosaurs. That's all.
Right.
So yeah.
Watch if you go hit stop on it, they just arrows out.
Yeah.
We meet the link.
Well, this is still going too, so we have something here.
Right. At worst, we have a roundtable audio.
Yeah. And we got low frame rate laptop camera footage that I also kept, so we'll have something.
Yeah.
Well, all right. So let's start with 2 hours. Eric, final thoughts?
I didn't care for it that much. I hope they do better. I still want Jurassic Park movies, and I do like some characters and some plot beats, but ultimately I think this is kind of rushed and thrown together, and very unfortunate that that's the case. So, but thumbs in the middle, I guess. Basically, in summation.
All right, you want to go? Since you started this.
Yeah, I mean I can. It's more the matter of just I don't have a real summation other than basically the same things I said at the start of it. Like I like that there were so many beats from the novels picked up here. Yeah. I like that this felt like a better attempt at what Jurassic Park 3 wanted to be on a lot of levels. And again, yeah, there's a lot of weak points, but I'm here for dinosaurs. Yeah. Even with the mutants, but they got to do the mutants, and I understand why they. Well, okay, I don't understand the Mutadons. I understand Distortus Rex. That creature had to be what it was to fit how they were going to do the pacing of the finale there. I get that. I am fine with that. My not caring for the design aside. Yeah. I understand the niche it had to fit, and how it had to feel. And a Rex, as we know it, would not have fit that. Rex would not have been appropriate in that. Maybe they could have done something new. Maybe you could have had a Spinosaur come up on land and be cumbersome because of the amphibious nature, but I don't think it would have been harrowing enough. I think I liked how they used the Spinosaurs here for the most part. It's a little goofy. Like I'm not gonna pretend like, oh, this yeah, this symbiosis makes perfect sense. Like, no, this is...
it's completely unmotivated. If anybody was wondering why the Mosa and Spinos work together.
Yeah, they never establish why they're cool with it and why they're doing it, and it's like, I just like, okay, we're just going with it. It's fine because there's also all kinds of other questions about what's going on with the Mosasaurs with 1 or 2 and things like that. But those weren't enough to take me out of it.
Yeah.
Like, I guess the one thing I could admit is, other than the wanting to use the new Spino and get an establishment and maybe some justification for JP3s, is that maybe they could have used something like, Tanystropheus? Like, that's probably too small.
Too small, yeah.
They're
also probably not aquatic, just water adjacent as far
right, but then it's not like they were going to bring in a Tylosaurus or something like that, or Chrono or Shoni, especially not. But like, the only thought is like, yeah, they could have. Well, honestly, I don't think they ever would have. But fucking A, if they would have gone like, hey, let's bring in Dinosuchus for some reason.
Yeah.
You know, or a Sarcosuchus. Let's bring in a Crocodilian.
Or even the Megalodon that's implied to have been revived in this world by
or Dunkleestes.
The dunk. There's a dunk cameo in the film.
Yes.
Forgot to mention that.
Yeah, the
fishermen fish up a dunk.
Yeah, somehow how they ended up with just the head in that all those little fish is very weird. But whatever.
I thought it was supposed to be a full dunk in there, but yeah,
no,
even with squish dunk, like modern interpretation, that's a little shorter.
They show
doesn't
another,
feel
no,
like
they
it
show
could
another angle for it. It's a severed head
in the fish. Okay,
it
well,
is.
It's severed head, 100%.
Okay, I didn't notice that. So
I caught that.
2 on 1. That makes it probably has to be a severed head to fit in the ball of fish. But yeah, how did they sever it with a net? That's whatever.
Or that how somehow it got scooped up in there.
It's refuse from Mosa attack probably or something.
Yeah. Those kind of little things you don't need to be explicitly told. And again, that's kind of why I make my peace with the Spino and the Mosasaur stuff for now, because they didn't hang out with them too long to make me have to question while they were up to it. There were lots of little things they could have done differently.
Does the dunk come out of nowhere? It's just there.
It's just there.
Yeah, they did. There's just a random establishing shot of people bringing up a load of fish, and there's a dunk head, I guess, in the fish.
And I guess those were created somewhere.
Yep. Yeah. And this is my problem with like rectifying the lore of like when the dunk I actually don't mind, because like Jurassic World does establish that there's aquarium facilities, and there is more than just the Mosasaur that was cloned in that park for aquatic animals, and there's no dialogue in the film that would contradict like a dunk being in Jurassic World in that movie, and we just don't see it. The thing that I find a little harder to figure out is like, where did the giant salamander things come from?
Those one don't bother me either.
It's not a huge thing. It's not a huge problem. Yeah. Going into this, people were talking about Skull Island and Skull Island vibes. There being a lot more things going on in the background. Yeah. So I was kind of expecting to see like 4 different species of ancient amphibian and like a Gorgonopsid and like an Edaphosaurus and a bunch of like Permian shit running around. And I thought I was going to be like, where the fuck did all this shit come from? But it's really like a dunk, Megalodon implied to be alive, and then like 2 shots of probably the same species of giant salamander. Yeah. Like that's not that hard to do.
Some sort of maybe something more.
Oh, and then like the Titanoboa giant eel with the Dianoga.
Yeah, and the nice thing is though, we do establish that there's over a dozen species that were on the island.
24 they say explicitly, which could be 20 or 28. 24 being not necessarily.
Yeah. So that also leaves it open for other species that can be brought forward in future installments, however direction they take this. Yeah. Right down to, and a reason I like the Jurassic novel or the Lost World novel parts of like the escape wasn't some big. Once they get out there and they get Pick Duncan back up, they just get to ride off into the sunset. Yeah. There didn't have to be. I like that it was okay. There was the little fulfillment of like, will Zora sell it to the pharma company, but the only guy who really knew about the mission is gone, and it's just her and his. Now it's that group's.
I expected there to be more at the ending. I expected something to set up a sequel, but there was nothing. Very self-contained, which honestly,
already establishment of this, the equator is where dinosaurs.
My take for this film overall, because that's where all this another, side branch of this conversation started was going through our final takes.
Yep.
I think this film knows what it wants to be. I think it's much tighter than the last few, like Fallen Kingdom, Dominion.
Sure.
It works much better as its own film. For me, the qualms all come from like inaccuracies scientifically or franchise-wise, or things that are hard to rectify in my mind without doing the fan thing of like, doing the fucking Pepe Sylvia board of connecting a bunch of disparate things together with string to try and make sense of it.
Yeah.
Like, the movie doesn't give a fuck about connecting that strongly with previous films. And as a fan, I would like it to, but I understand that it's not going to do that, and it didn't want to do that, and it didn't set out to do that. So
I think that's something we can be thankful for. Is like we didn't just fully retcon and reboot Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
We've got the soft part, and I'm happier with the soft than I am, because if we get a full-on reboot of Jurassic Park, I want a series. I want it to be episodic. I think drawing this out for like 10 episodes, following that novel very accurately, could be amazing.
Yeah, I don't think that would happen until the franchise has gone on ice for a decade or two. That's the big possibility for something like that.
I'm not as confident about that anymore after this Harry Potter stuff. I guess it has been well over a decade, but it still shocked me that they're like, oh, we're doing a Harry Potter series now.
I think the difference there is Harry Potter became popular as a book and Jurassic became popular as a movie. Mm-hmm. Like, the book was a bestseller, sure, but it wasn't like a global sensation just as a book like the Harry Potter books.
I don't feel like I don't feel like Harry Potter was that big until the movie came out either.
I think it was.
I think it absolutely was.
Well, because it was a kid's book, yes.
Yeah, it was.
Everyone read those, though.
I didn't.
We were the wrong age demographic.
No, we weren't.
Sure, we were.
No,
we weren't. No,
those are young adult novels, and
when did the first Harry Potter?
96.
Not really.
Yes.
Yes,
really?
Exactly. They were not that big a deal until the movie came. They were appreciated.
No, they were huge.
They
had 4 movies out before by the time. Well, no, I'm trying to say
4 books out by the time
they
the
had
movie
2
came
books.
out? Okay. Well, okay.
I think it was only 2 or at most 3.
I'll say 3. I'll say 3 books.
But I think it was. I'm pretty sure it was only 2. Well, no, because the last one came. No, you might be right. She was turning those things out.
Well,
but way off topic.
I mean, they had to start the movies because the books were huge.
I gotta say one thing about '90s young adult series.
Sure.
Animorphs best.
That is exactly where my point was gonna go. Yeah. What is J.K. Rowling, piece of shit? K. Applegate, the complete opposite.
Yes.
Pro-trans, good person. Fuck Harry Potter, read Animorphs.
Yeah, no, Animorphs needs to be brought back with the current CGI and shit. Because there was an Animorphs movie. Fucking Iceman Bobby Drake was
show. It was a Nickelodeon show. Yeah, not a movie.
Or not? Yeah, sorry, but no, I got too far ahead of myself.
There's a graphic novel, but I don't know like the status of that. I haven't really paid attention.
Yeah, I've heard it's kind of rough.
Yeah,
but yeah, that's the treatment I want. I want, if they were gonna reboot Jurassic, I want it to be in the series.
Yeah. No, I get it. I
wish the reboot was a little bit stronger as a film. But this wasn't it.
That's okay.
No, that's perfectly fine opinion to have. I don't disagree with it. We'll see. I think the lack of like marketing website type shit that we had for the Trevorrow trilogy surrounding this one is kind of weird because we had a lot of potential gaps filled outside of the movies to try and explain the previous trilogy, and that's largely because those movies were problematic in the scripting sense. And this movie is much tighter, so it really didn't need that much marketing material to try and make the movie make sense. But I do kind of wish it was there to try and connect the pieces a little bit tighter. For a nerd, super nerd like me.
I think that's also why they avoided it though. Is potentially they don't have to do worrying about those pitfalls. I think Gareth wanted probably like, I want to make my self-contained bit. We don't have to worry about all the other stuff. It'll just be, it stands on its own. New island, new dinos.
Yeah, it definitely comes off as a response to Dominion of like stepping away from where that part of the story left off.
Yeah.
Not as egregious as like Star Wars Episode 9 or something.
But... All right then.
But yeah. All right, I guess that's it. Boom.
Goes the done.
If you sat through the full thing, cool. check out Charlie's movie reviews,
You lost power. I don't know how long.
etc. So
It's
So
not
maybe
even
the
on.
battery died.
Yep.
okay. Well, anyway, hopefully the footage is not corrupted then.
Yeah.